Hey, what is going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, the Leo King, and Dylan, the human design maven, for Before Dawn on this full moon in Aquarius, August the 10th into the 11th of 2022. Hope everybody's doing wonderful out there. Make sure that you join us on highvibe.tv at all the links down below. Become a member by getting all the exclusive content, the daily content, the weekly content, and so much more on all the apps down below or highvibe.tv for the best deals. What's going on, Dylan? How are you?
Well, I think I can speak for many of us in saying that it was a bit of a crispy week out there in the energetic realms.
It was like the crispy cracker breaking apart with Celine Dion crescendoing and it all flying apart like in the car and getting all over yourself.
Right. It was like that one perfect bite that you had made for yourself while you're driving and you're like ready to bite it. And then it just crashed off while she's doing the high note.
I learned during my Saturn Return in 2013 that you can't try and eat salad while driving. Like that was something.
Thank you, Saturn.
Yeah, thanks, Saturn. I'll never forget just all of it going all over my legs, all over the bottom of the car, everywhere, the salad dressing. I was just like, okay.
Somebody's getting sued.
I remember then being like, I'm done. Little did I know, 9 years later, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'll take that back, you know?
Life
the crispy cracker blowing up is a little bit more intense.
But that's our metaphor for the week. And I'm sure many of you out there can attest to the kind of fuckery, can I say that? That was in the air.
I mean, you know, I'm drinking apple juice, Sprite, and more Sprite. So
I got real water.
You know.
But yeah, I mean, now we're here and we're stronger. We've been through it. And we're at this really interesting Aquarius full moon that I'm excited to talk about because it's going to lead us into so many other interesting transits that our nation is experiencing.
I know. And as an astrologer, you know, looking at this full moon, it's one of those that, I actually have to say it's the second most pressuristic new moon or full moon. The lunar eclipse that's coming in Taurus here in November is the big one. So this is like, I think you said it best before the show. You said like this full moon's coming in to be like, this is the way it is now.
Yeah.
There's like a little bit of that Aquarius, like Saturn snarky, like, the gears are going this way. They're not going that way.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. It's almost like this full moon is here to say, if there was any confusion as if things were going to go back to, you know, back to normal or whatever. No, I think this is kind of like the curtain drop on the old story. You know, the first part of 2022 being kind of like these two acts of very distinct energy that kind of already feel a little bit obsolete. Like the stuff that we've been through up to this point in the year, it has been kind of like an entryway. I think you called it that. It was kind of like being in the lobby, basically. And this full moon to me is really the emotional breakthrough that is guiding us into this whole new paradigm as we lead up into 2027. We touched on so much, you know, about the mythology and kind of the forecasting of what our journey towards 2027 is going to look like. And one of the biggest pieces of that is the mutation of the solar plexus. And so this full moon is falling in gate 49 in the solar plexus, which is the actual codon in our genetic code, as well as the gate in human design that is going to basically shut off after 2027. We will lose the 49th gate post 2027 as the 55th gate fully comes online. And the 49 is super important to us as a species because it's a place of the establishment of the tribal bargain, the tribal bond. What are these rules and regulations and agreements and contracts that we have within society, within our tribe, within our family clan that basically keep things safe, that keep things peaceful, that keep things copacetic. Everyone has a kind of certain bond, a certain kind of agreement that they show up for in a certain way. You know, if you're the hunter in the tribe, you're always going to be hunting. If you're the farmer, you're always going to be farming. But if everyone plays their role within that infrastructure, everyone gets to survive, everyone gets to thrive. And these laws of the tribe are held together by spiritual and emotional bonds. And when I say emotional, it's not just the touchy-feely, you know, sentimental kind of emotions. It's everything that goes into the solar plexus, which involves everything that is pleasurable and distasteful and that we seek as an experience, that what makes us human. You know, it's this very wide spectrum of feeling, of sentiment, of sensation, of awareness. 49th gate is what allows us to be sensitive to one another and to basically form these bonds of sensitivity of your needs and my needs and bring them both into, you know, one, like a braid almost of an agreement. And it's like actually the channel of marriage. So it's
really,
like, yeah, this is like the foundation of all these agreements that say, okay, you're in my tribe. Well, stay within, you know, you're my wife, then you have to be within arm's length so I can touch you, because that way I know that you're mine. So there's a lot of stuff in the tribal bond that's around being able to touch one another, which is interesting because we had that whole distancing happening. But
does that make the chart have a cognition of touch, or?
Not necessarily, because obviously somebody could, you know, have an emotional gate or many emotional gates in their design, but not have touch cognition. I mean, I have gate 49 as my north node, but I am, you know, open taste vision. But where I was going with all this is saying this full moon is kind of showing us the beginning of the breakdown of the tribal bargain. And this has a lot to do with money as well, because it's through this bargain of money, and you know, we need to have this mutual respect so that, you know, the money that I receive from you reinforces my value, which makes me want to show up to this job, which makes the company run well. Like all of these minute connections that we have over ownership, allegiance, alliance, value, and who we, you know, rub shoulders with and elbows with. This is kind of the beginning of the crack in the facade, I think. And this is also happening right on the natal moon of the United States as well.
Yeah, and that's, I think, one of the weird parts. I mean, to stay out of the politics of it, but just like an observer, right? You could tell the country right now is kind of like where we really don't know where fully everybody's sitting. But one of the biggest events in our history has ever happened with Trump being, you know, his house having the FBI there, and then nobody showing up to say what's going on. So it's kind of the same energy where I think everybody's kind of feeling like, what's going on in my life, right? Like weird things are happening that have never happened before. I'm feeling things I've never felt before. And there is that kind of a feeling, especially with this full moon in Aquarius that is square Uranus and the nodes. So there's a lot of this, whether you want to call it, you know, karmic / it's more potent. It makes it more extreme. And so when you add all these elements together, it feels like, you know, even just as the sense of the world being Aquarius and all the interconnectivities of our global standpoint, you have the EU, and every country in the last week has just been, power shortages, winter, I don't know what we're going to do, you know, and so there's that all the way to what's going on in Taiwan. There's, you know, war stuff going on. Then you have America, where it's just like, I feel like America's kind of like
asleep,
a toss up right now.
Yeah.
You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know what's going to happen next. And so that brings a lot of edge on people and their nervous systems, especially with Aquarius having that. And that's kind of hard to find that emotional detachment when Uranus is squaring it. So it's kind of like, no matter what you try to do to detach, there's that Taurus element and that North Node Uranus element. And that, like, how do you find our little, like, you know, moment through this, you know, because it's like almost detachment can make you feel too far away too. So it's a very hard one with the sun and Leo too, right? We all want to find this happiness place, but it's kind of being squashed right now. Like,
Yeah. This Leo season, sorry, but it does kind of feel like a washout this year. Like it's that big, like bushy, like full, sun energy that we're used to in this season is kind of being super interfered with, I feel like. Just like through this electric energy of Aquarius and the nodes and Uranus, all kind of like cracking down on our normal capacity to just feel good and in the self and full of love of the self at this time, because we're so rapidly changing our definitions of self on so many different layers. And what the 49th gate really wants us to do, which is also where Saturn is right now, is to become emotionally aware. Any of the triggers, any of the trials and tribulations that come through the experiences of this gate really actually force us to face what needs to change and what old order we need to basically revolutionize. It's the gate of revolution. So we need to kind of break things down in order to
try your thing again, because we just had to turn the Mac Mini back on. So try to connect and reconnect again.
Yeah, I just saw that text. How's that looking?
Boom.
Ta-da.
Ta-da.
So here's our Aquarius full moon. And of course, as we've been learning on the show, let's get rid of this little thing. We don't actually use the full body graph with the design and the personality when we're looking at a transit. So we do not use the design side because a transit doesn't have a body. So of course, we don't take that into consideration. So we're just using the personality side here, just for you at-home human designers. And we can see that Earth and the moon are in gate 49, line 1, which is all about introspection. Any line 1 we're going to see is about looking within for the answers or finding somebody else with the answers, so we can get that secure foundation of details in place so that we can step up onto it and build the rest of the house. So in this moon and the 2 weeks following, as well as maybe the 6 months following until our next Aquarius new moon, we are building new emotional foundations on what cycles we need to end. Whether that's in our own tribe, within our own clan, or within a more global or collective context, we're really feeling and grading against. And again, this is the solar plexus, which is under mutation, which means it's not just a mental concept of like, oh yeah, that is something I need to change. You're feeling this in your nervous system. You're feeling this in your body as a sense of unease. Mm-hmm. And that unease is showing you, or maybe you can follow that unease back to a source of some kind. And that's kind of revealing to you, okay, what cycles do I need to end? What laws that I've abided by, even in my own mind or even into my own self, do I need to break in order to be more in integrity with my spirit? Because the solar plexus is also the place in which the spiritual self, the higher self, the unlimited version of us speaks through the body itself. And so we're getting these sometimes very uncomfortable, sometimes very destabilizing and hard to understand energies coming through the solar plexus. But what it's really trying to do is break off that old shell, because again, the phoenix is going to have to rise fairly soon. And I think that's really also a big part of why we're feeling such weird ups and downs in energy and energy cycles and energy levels, is the solar plexus is really going into its final stage of molting, preparing for its evolution.
Well, I noticed that channel of the inspiration from the G center to the throat chakra is activated. And it kind of feels like when I know there's so much of the feeling of disconnection, but the opposite of all these fixed energies and fixed signs is knowing exactly what you do want, Mm-hmm. And I feel like with that channel activated, it's like you kind of have to rally up the inside of knowing when you're thinking about cycles to close, it's because you know the cycles you want to enter into at the same time. Mm-hmm. That's the other part of this. So I feel like it's like we can sit and try and rationalize so many things or process things so much in our minds and even in our bodies, or feel the nervousness of things. But I feel like that inspiration is, you know what? I know what I have to do because I know what I want, and I know what I don't want, and I know what and it's like you have to find that inspiration. It's not an easy place. I actually have that channel, so it's like one of those things for me where I'm like, okay, yeah, I want this. It's gonna be okay as long as I know, because I feel there's some calling that wants to come to manifestation through me understanding totally in that G center what feels defined that I really want, or that I've at least identified.
And you're going to hear it in your voice, because this full moon is a self-projected projector, even just in the personality side. And we've got the South Node in gate 1, line 5, which is known as the energy to attract society. And we've got gate 8, line 1, which is that collective voice, which is known as, whoops, clicking around too much, which is known as honesty. Well, the truthful acceptance of limitation and recognition that it can only be transcended through sharing. So spot on. We're basically looking at, what is that true innate creative drive that we have in line 5, which is actually kind of making it a sharing energy, because line 5 wants to universalize to the whole collective. It's not concerned with just one person. And the gate 8 is saying, well, it's innately a collective contribution channel. And gate 8 is saying, you've got to be freaking honest about what's worth it right now.
Right.
And that's coming from your higher self. That's not based on the mind's value judgment. That's not based on your emotional nervousness with the energy. It's about coming from that, like you said, higher self space, and really feeling that resonant tone in your voice around certain things. What are the things in your life that call forth that, like that true, excitement, that enthusiasm, that energy, that conviction.
Yes.
Those are the things that we're being asked to focus on. This is a projector chart, so there is a sense of focusing in on something. And almost in a way,
and the dispositor of the North Node is Venus, and Venus coming into Leo here out of that opposition to Pluto that we've been having in Capricorn, and it's with the Sun in Leo, which the Sun is at that 4th line or 4th gate. So that's kind of an interesting, dynamic. That's in the head, right? So in the Anja, it's kind of one of those weird things where I think following Venus right now is a good place for us to be right now, especially about knowing and finding a positive space and knowing that it is that physical. You brought up that needing that touch energy, right? That even Venus, I would say here in Leo, needs that at this place in the throat. Like, it needs to be manifest. It needs to be created. It can't just be a conception in our head, which I think is the problem for the Sun being up in the Anja right now and being a self-projected projector, right? It's like, how do we get the recognition to get the invitation too, right? Like, it's like, I don't know if you agree with this, but I always try and tell projectors, I'm like, all you have to do is just get in the area and, of where you want to get your invitation and get recognized. You don't have to do much, like it's kind of just like, hi, you don't have to invite yourself for anything. Just the energy will come to you and be like, hey, oh my God, who are you? Like, I want to invite you into, boom. So I feel like we have to kind of put ourselves in the places we want to go and then trust the universe that the door and the invite's going to happen. And Venus and Leo is with the self-projected projector, I would say, is like, hey, like, if you want to get into, I don't know, a cooking, then, go to a cooking show and walk around.
If you want to get inducted into the Illuminati, go hang out at the Vatican.
Right, exactly. If that's your thing, you know what I mean? If that's your thing, like, go do that. But I think it's like, we can't just be sitting back at the same time either and just expecting everything's going to change at this point. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to show up to something. I think we do have to focus on something. I don't know if we could turn to the chart that I have, or am I on the wrong iMac?
Well, that's a really good channel, because gate 56 is called the Wanderer, and it is this energy of being a newcomer in a foreign land, in a sense.
Yeah, that's where my son is. So
yeah, we know. And so it's like you are arriving into some new scene, basically, and is that supposed to be in the middle?
Yeah, if you could pull off his... Oh, he's on iMac?
There's the fusion.
There's a fusion,
never
an overlay,
before seen,
an overlay,
live.
like a bang, bang, bang. Yeah, no, I'm here now. So I just wanted to show people, like, as this full moon's happening, 19 and then 19 with Saturn there's that Venus that's coming to Leo. And I think it's important to remember in astrology, we want to follow the North Node, and it's in Taurus. The ruler of Taurus, of course, is Venus. And it's still with that Uranus, but, we're seeing a separation now. They're going separate directions, even though Uranus is pretty much stationed. It's going to retrograde here in like about a week and a half. And what's crazy is with Venus now in Leo and that North Node being in Taurus, it does change the game. I think Venus in Cancer, it's like we kind of soak in it a lot longer of what is that nourishment needed. And then when it opposed Pluto over this last week, while we've been having these other crazy transits, right? There has been this like, okay, this is where the cup is so dry, like I need to, because in ancient astrology, Capricorn rules dryness, right? And then the opposite of Cancer is where we can be almost too soaked, right? Right? You could be in a bath, a typical Cancer will be in a bath till the prunes become like prunes, right? Yeah. And so I feel like this is an interesting moment where now it's like in the fire of Leo, and it's in a throat gate, right? It's in a gate of, like you said, like this wander that needs to kind of, I don't know why I channeled wandering around like a cooking convention, if you wanted to be into cooking, or putting yourself in the right environment too, of where you want to get recognized right now. I think it's so important. You just can't keep sitting, I feel like, in the tower and being like, a damsel in distress and waiting for an invite, but it's like, I'm sorry, there's no knight in shining armor that even waving your little fucking panties out the fucking tower ain't gonna work.
Right. The G center is the center of direction, identity, and love. And so if you're not bringing your love into the world in a meaningful way and contributing to the collective through whatever your love is, whatever form that takes, then you're not going to be recognized. You're not going to be invited. And you're going to probably have a lot more opportunity to sit in that tower and sit in that tower and sit in that tower, which is not the way. I don't believe that is the way anymore. It's like the people that really want to be, on this cutting edge of, awakening or consciousness or whatever you want to call it. It's like, it's not just about thinking about that. It's about love in the world and understanding that we have to bring love to this planet through our lives.
Right.
Through our voice, through our actions, the throat center, manifestation. And if we're not doing that, what are we even doing?
Especially if you look at Saturn at 22 and Jupiter at 8, that's a 45-degree angle. So we're seeing a semi-square. And that's rough because when we've already dealt with Jupiter, Saturn in their conjunction point, which was in 2020. Now we're seeing the semi-square. And already that Jupiter just went retrograde with the new moon just 2 weeks ago. There's a deflationary element. Then you have a semi-square to Saturn, which we've already dealt with so much Saturn, Jupiter, and the restriction, the constraint, but also the wanting to expand, but it's like kind of leveling itself out. The semi-square feels like a kinked toes of like the deflationary element of, I don't know if I have the courage or the confidence. Is this going to happen? And especially in Aquarius with Saturn there, it's like complicated issues where Saturn's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Stop for a second. You're going crazy on the chalkboard. You've gone, there's no more chalk left. And you're like running around looking for something to replace chalk with. You know what I mean? It's like, no, maybe this isn't the solution.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like another weird part where the astrology helps with the angles is like, hey, this is definitely deflationary in a sense of like, and where the inspiration of HD in that channel is going to teach you is like, you do know what you want. And maybe the solution's a lot simpler. By just focusing on that instead of coming up with every reason why you can't or every reason that it's pulling you down or it's making you feel. And that's a self-projected projector, right? You could self-project. I don't know. Can you self-project even the worst of scenarios as a self-projected projector?
Yeah, you're either projecting the self, capital S, or you're projecting the not self that's masquerading as the self. And it's all about that tonality. It's all about actually listening for the truth in that frequency. And that's really the way to find your truth. And I think also because of the 49 gate energy, like if you're experiencing a lot of weird energy, a little like friction and tension and just like scatter, it's because you're still doing the old stuff. That's what you're actually feeling. You're feeling yourself not changing with what you probably
Have to
really
change.
want to do,
Yeah.
where you want to be, who you want to be. That unpleasantness is your motivation from the universe to fucking get out of there and do the next big thing. And we need to be doing big stuff now. And that's been really interesting, like just in conversations with people that I'm close to. I've been noticing that people are really imagining and idealizing, not in a bad way, but people are thinking big. I've been noticing people thinking big, and I really like it. You know, they're not trying to like incrementally get a little bit better anymore. There's like this sense of, well, why don't we just go straight to where we want to go now? Like, why don't we do the full length feature film instead of just the short film? Why don't we make it a freaking documentary instead of just make it a retreat? You know, like, I think that's the ticket.
Yeah, and I think it goes in simple ways too, right? Like if you want to expand your this is like where I think Taurus is teaching so much in it's more than I think thinking big. I think it's in actually believing in creating what can be a better level with that Uranus that we just had, North Node conjunction, and Mars. It's like the illusion is that South Node in Scorpio of just, oh no, it's all going to fall apart. It's going to die. It's fine. Right. It's like, and especially looking at the chart, Chiron is an exact now starting to quincunx, which is a very weird angle, 16 to this 17 now of Scorpio. So like, this is just continuing to, this is like beyond digging deep into the wounds. Like this is where you're actually digging. It's like, I remember when I used to smoke methamphetamine and I used to sit in the mirror for 5 hours on a pimple to where it probably just would have gone away in a day or two if I just would have just washed my face and not touched it. But no, I decided to touch it for 5 hours to where it became not just a fucking, now it's like a fucking gash, but then it's like a pulling out everything that's even underneath in layers of skin and layers of skin to where, oh, I have a scar now from it for years or whatever. And I feel like this is where people are, I think, allowing that big vision and then picking on the wound and picking the scabs and then digging out the scab and then digging deeper into the wound to where you're starting to get to areas that's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Stop going in that. Stop letting that stop from creating a higher level of what things could be. And it's hard because we are dealing with both sides kind of all simultaneously smashing together in a weird way. And that kind of goes with the CERN thing of what they're trying to do. It's like they're kind of intentionally doing that. Like, let's slam this really high good thing in people's life, and then let's slam the worst of what they're feeling. Let's just see what happens. It's almost like they don't realize they're not taking in the consideration of what's happening in our alignments and thinking about how that is contributing to what the particles are connected to.
Because the particles are conscious too.
Correct.
I don't know if they're working on that level yet.
Yeah.
But, you know, each one of those particles has a higher self that it could be connecting to or not, depending on the intention put behind that collision or that whatever is going on in there. And I also, like, on what you were just saying, I feel like another thing that people are using to stop themselves is like, oh, well, I'm just a normal person. Like, I can't do that kind of thing. Even though they might be having these big, like, legitimate dreams, I think that we really need to not take for granted how accessible things can be when we're in that higher alignment. You know, because society will teach us, oh, you need this amount of money and this much time and da-da-da, and this many people to make something happen, something, you know, meaningful or considerable. And I think right now, because of the high stakes of this time, the universe is like, liquidation sale, we'll give it to you if you show up for it, you know. So just show up for it, because the things that might have taken 3 to 5 years before it can happen in 6 months now. So we need those willing self-projected beings who are willing to go through the revolution of killing their old ego, even going through an ego death or two, to accept this new higher octave of success and potency and just intentional creation of being who we are. We're creators if we accept that. Yeah,
and I think it's not so systematic, right? It's like, this is where I think a lot of the burning of the system is coming down. It's like, well, if I have a manifesting journal and I do this and I do that and I do this and I play it by this is definitely not the time where any list is working at all. Or any kind of structure or any kind of success Instagram being like, if you wake up at 6 a.m. and you do this and you go into the, like, there's so much of that. And then that puts pressure on people. But when you bring up about people feeling like, well, I don't know if I could do it, somebody like me who's got to this point is actually doing the same thing. I'm like, actually like, I don't know if I can even hold this kind of thing, even though I've held it for so long, or all the things I've done to get here. And I'm like, I don't even think I can do this. And it's like, wait, what is it? Wait, what is it? I don't even think I can do what I've done for a long time that was continuing. It's not even so much about whether it can expand or not, whether or not I can even do it. And then thinking about, well, what would I do if I can't do it? And where does it go if I can't hold that anymore? And it's like, this is where nobody can go backwards and go, no, I'm never going to be able to do it, or I've always done it, but I can't do it anymore, when it's a positive space that's actually been defined, been shown. So it's like we can trick ourselves too in projecting kind of this like weird thing of the wounds we're going through, the tiredness. Yeah, too, because as a projector, right, you have to wait for the invite to guide. You're not here to work your fucking ass off and try and fucking keep up with the fucking what everybody else is doing, right? And so I think that's another part of this, where this Aquarius full moon and Saturn is a big check, and the Leo is actually being illuminated very powerfully of like, hey, you don't need to do it the way everybody else does it. Like, and especially a real Aquarius isn't doing it anyway the way other people do it. Neither is Leo, you know? So it's kind of the irony of like the shadow of both, right? Like, the Leo shadow is being the ego that honestly like is not good for people. Right. But the Aquarius shadow is following others and not being rebellious and not being revolutionary and not, you know, innovating. So I think it is a weird moment here where it's like, this is not the time to be like, well, the success IG that I follow that does this is telling me if I do this or if I do that 75, I've heard this like for whatever, like all these diets, or I'm gonna for 75 days I won't drink alcohol, and then for this many days I'll do only this diet, and it's like whoa. You heard that from all these other things, you know what I mean? Like, this is a very powerful time of inside.
That's someone else's authority you're listening to, and that's the whole thing. That's what we're doing with human design, is like, you have an inner authority. You are your own authority, and if you live by that authority, there's nothing that you can't figure out. I had this realization earlier this morning. I was like, if you just know your strategy and authority, you can do anything, because it will show you everything that you need to do. Even if it's something that you think is scientifically, mystically, you know, complicated, mathematics, whatever, not within your reach. If your strategy and authority authentically leads you to that point, the miraculous intelligence of the universe and the life force is going to put those keys in your hands, and it's going to shock you at what you're capable of just by showing up, just by following your own higher self's direction. And I've been witnessing that with myself, things where I'm like trying it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and I'm like, oh, I probably can't do this, and then I just keep doing it, and it works. Like, it just works. It's just like, it's almost like a video game where you're just like, it doesn't seem like anything's happening, and then bling, it's like, boom, there's magic. I think that's also part of this axis with Leo and Aquarius too. It's like, there's like a magic there that can kind of just burst out of the momentum you already have, in a sense.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of that magic is, I mean, this Neptune Pisces that's retrograde has kind of got this weird little bracing break period, because if you think about it, it's in its home sign, but Saturn's on its way into Pisces in 2023, right? Jupiter's going to come back in and kind of give it its last boost before it has to deal with Saturn's world, right? I don't think people are even remembering that, or even knowing that it's like, hello, Saturn's about to come into Pisces, you know, like with Neptune there. So we're getting the total opposites. So Jupiter, Saturn are very influential of the last 3 years, right? 2020, 2021, and here 2022, and then even into 2023, being for the fact that magic right now is a very pure state, or what the intuition is really guiding us to is very strong. And it is kind of one of our great outs right now. And I think that's because of where Saturn's coming. It's going to be like, oh, you didn't follow your intuition? Oh, boom. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be as easy to do the magic the longer we go up this, especially the cross of planning that we covered about last week, because they'll just be kind of stuck in the plans that were for something else that are dying anyway. So like, this is where more than ever, I think you have to believe in the magic, especially with Leo and Pisces. Those are two signs that really do believe in the magic. They don't question it. They believe in the magic kingdoms. They believe in the ethereal, godly kingdoms. They believe in the highest of them all. And so I think that this is a confrontation, a dealing with about a very deep subconscious element of the system, the programming, the tribal programming, the programming that we're seeing in our own circles, to especially the media circles and all around us that have been created in this world. And I think that, you know, getting through that illusion to find the truth is scary for a lot, because what, you know, I know there's people out there when we talk about that GMI that's scary, but to me, when I look at some down of the other weird stuff that's going on that we haven't even talked about on the show yet, there's way scarier, weirder stuff of what we've been programmed to think is, and underneath whatever that is totally not even close yet to what people are ready for.
Yeah.
Whether it's the food we're eating, whether it's, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, what is that really meat? Is that even really, even in the vegan foods, like these natural flavors? Because human is not animal, like weird shit like that. And how they've been pushing cannibalism. They've been pushing these weird things. And it's like, you start really kind of like going deeper down this hole, and it's like, maybe I should choose my magic now. Maybe I should exit this system right now, because it's going and pulling you more and more. And especially people are part of that system that are in your circle that are vibrating on a frequency that's not on your frequency. This is where the magic is. You know, people come into our lives for a reason, they leave for a reason. And that's simple as that. It's like, okay.
A lot of people,
you know,
come into our lives because we have the same parasites as them. And they're actually grouping us together to enhance their harvesting operation and cause, you know, miasmic connections and relationships that just create more negative energy that can be siphoned off of us. And so you kind of have to have both a deeper belief in the magic and a deeper trust in that inner intuition that is perhaps guiding you in a direction that is scaring your ego on a deep level. And you also have to be very vigilant and very discerning to see who swipes into your life and steals your energy right before you're about to make that big leap. Who are the people that you might even, you know, it's not saying they're bad people, but like, what are the energies that interfere with your clarity right as you get to the precipice of a breakthrough? That needs to be, you know, identified, because it's not like you have to cut these people off or anything, but you do need to guard your process long enough that you're not being drained before you can do your magic.
That's, I think, the golden nugget right there, especially with this full moon with Saturn in Aquarius, which I hate to say is like the devil card in tarot, you know, whether it was in any sign, right? But it is in its home sign of Aquarius. It is Saturn. Saturn is Satan. It is the devil card in tarot. And so this is a huge spiritual war going on. It's not the battle. It's not one of the many battles. It's become a war. It's not.
Yes.
It's not a joke anymore, you know? And so that's kind of the scary part. I think that, you know, we're lucky. I think that over these last couple of weeks, North Node Uranus teaches us some really crazy lessons. But now that they've separated, I think after this full moon is like, there is no more fucking up. There's no more fucking up. And if you look at the astrology and the human design forward, there is no more fucking up. There's no space for it. And I know in the spiritual community, I think that's the hardest thing, right? Is the whole like, you don't worry, everything always turns out fine. And it's like, yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But now it's going to be where even the spirituality is coming back to even how it was back in the old days, of where there comes moments that our ancients have warned of. There comes moments in Roman times and ancient Egypt times where it's like, no, I'm sorry, but no, this is not time to screw around anymore. And so, especially when, you know, whether you look at the Maya and you see spaceships and these big fucking giants that are coming and drawn in Egypt, you say the same thing. Like, we're at those weird moments where there are these other beings out there that are ready to come. They're already here, but they're ready to do their bidding, per se. And you can see it with the way that the world events are working. And I think that's all you're supposed to use the world events for, is a gauge. Like, it's a gauge.
It's the weather.
It's the weather. And especially of our collective. And that the gauge has now gone red line, and, you know, the check engine light's on and the car's sputtering out. You know, it's like, no, you're not going to be okay if you just keep trying to push the gas and think you're going to be, oh, no, everything's fine. Do like a hippie, like, let's just put on a good song and just like, we'll sing through this and watch the car go off the cliff, you know, when the brakes are out too. You know, it's like, it's definitely a moment where I think after this point, there's no more fucking up.
Gate 49, revolution. This is where Saturn is too at this moon. Ideally, the transformation of forms based on the highest principles and not simply for power. We have it in line 4, which is an opportunistic line. So Saturn is saying, if you are in alignment with your truest, highest collective contribution, or just self-contribution, it doesn't necessarily have to be collective, then you're also putting yourself in a space where you can be given, line 4, a platform. You know, so I think that for some people, even though there is this very stark truth of like, you could really screw yourself up if you take the wrong step right now. But also that's not recipe for you to be coming from fear every day. But what I'm saying is, I think for a select few, which could still be many in the grand scheme of things, this is a real upgrade, you know, also because Gate 49, in my experience, has a lot to do with the nervous system upgrades that we've been undergoing. A big reason why this GMI has come in to kind of stop and truncate those upgrades from happening, because they would allow us to hold more light. But those of us that have been protecting our process, or at least putting the best foot forward and having a vision, having a goal, having an intention, this full moon might actually give you that platform to step up into your next level of spiritual leadership or whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I almost feel like when I brought up, you know, not fucking up, like this is the moment where it's like seeing fully now where the missteps have been, where things will not go good for you anymore, and no longer, and that platform you're talking about is the platform where it's like, yep, I know every little weak point in myself. I think we have to focus on our weak points right now, right? Because sometimes it's not that I think when we're focused too much on our strong points and not seeing them work, it's because we're not focusing on our weak points, and where our weak points are actually causing the strong points not to work.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I look at that and that platform, no fixing, I feel like it's like, yeah, like, okay, this shit's happened. Especially North Node Uranus is a fucking trip. The roller coaster's been crazy for the last couple weeks here. It's been crazy.
It has been.
And it's been felt subtle in points, but then really, like, it's always kind of the aftermath of the shocking factor. And I think that's what this full moon too is the last like big shock here before. This is really the weirdest times of our lives that are beginning right now. And like, it's like, okay, I've seen where this didn't work or that didn't work or this didn't work. And this platform I'm stepping on is, I know my weak points. I've got my conscious guards of awareness. It's not so much like I need to protect myself and I need to put angels there and right? It's more like I have my conscious alarm bells on of when this is weird. I'm about to do something great or something big is about to go on. And who's this trying to come in now? Oh, this is my weak spot. Nope, not no more. Oh, this is my weak spot. I usually go to alcohol, or maybe I always go to drugs. No. Right. It's like, these are the things that are going to be like now, like you have to go boop, 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 boop. Like you got to have it installed, the alarm bell, and you have to have it where it's not got a snooze button either. Like, I didn't hear that. Beep. You know, like turn that off and like, let me try to skip it one more try. Because that's the other thing is the experimentation of Aquarius wants to keep trying, and Saturn's like, no, please don't. Please, like, we got to have some boundaries with experimental energy in life. That's the hard part of Saturn Aquarius is, you know, we can free ourselves more by, instead of, you know, being in a jail cell and continually trying to break the bars down, when really all you had to do was maybe dig underneath. I mean, it kind of reminds me of Aladdin, right? When he's sitting there and he doesn't know how to get out of there. And that's when Jafar shows up all looking all decrepit as the old guy in the sound. And, oh, my boy, he's got his passageway, you know? But it's also like, that's his way out. But it's like one of those things to where I don't know. Actually, that's kind of a weird analogy. I think the better one is there was that movie, oh God, what was it? Where he gets put in jail and then he has to come back for revenge. And he's French.
The Count of Monte Cristo?
The Count of Monte Cristo.
One of my favorite books.
Right?
Best. One of the
and I feel like this is one of those moments where it's like all the missteps of the people he trusted and all that stuff that got him there. And then this is kind of the revolution of like, I know my missteps so well. I know where the treasure is. The idea where you don't know where the treasure is, he knows. He has enough confidence to know and he does find it. And then he uses that to... I don't think that we're in a place where we need to go get back at people, but there is a lot of atrocity and a lot of darkness on this planet right now too.
Did you ever see Reboot, the show?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what this moment of this moon reminds me of too. It's in that show. They used to have this thing. It was like the main part of the show.
Thought of that
and there would be like, warning, incoming game.
Yeah.
And this giant purple cube would like descend upon a portion of the city. And if you were stuck within that cube when it descended, you had to play the game.
I know.
And kill or be killed, basically, until you won. And I kind of feel like that's the vibe. It's like the cube is descending. Are you ready to play the game?
Yeah.
Because we don't get to say, oh, well, spiritually, I choose not to play the game. It's like, no, you got to play to win or else you're not getting out of the game. So
yeah, you're still in District 7 in you know in the Hunger Games, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to go stand outside this. It's like, well, when they don't really like that district anymore, they're just going to level that whole district. You know, that's what happens when you go down that whole movie, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, and even, you know, who looks like the good team in that movie really is the bad team, right? Even though they do, there are bad players, but they kill their own children and all that in the end, really, and put it on fucking whatever his name was, the fucking...
PETA?
No, even though I did not like his character at all, I couldn't stand him. No, the main guy, the guy that runs the fucking district, like, you know, like... And remember at the end, they do the public thing where they're going to shoot him, but she shoots the girl instead because she finds out through him when he's dying of tuberculosis. He's like, you don't think I would kill and destroy my own energy around my own place? It's fucking her. And it's true, though. That's what she did to make it, like, you know, to win the war or whatever. But, like, that's fucked up, right? So she shoots that. And there's this weird public kind of thing that's going to pop up, I think. I think we're looking a little bit more in the future here. But that is what's weird about a full moon in Aquarius, too, about looking into the future, about what stuff is going on right now. And I think that kind of leads us to look at America's chart, because I mean, I think America is playing the crazy game right now. It's like the cube has dropped on America, you know what I mean? If you think of Reboot, and you have to play this game now. Just looking at this week alone, and you know, you think in the world and the stories, we're in a weird moment. And the fact that America's Pluto return has started, right? It's one of those things where it's like, it started. Like, some people like looked at, the beginning of this year. I'm like, no, it was a Pluto retrograde. It's going to retrograde over many times. A Pluto return is a year and a half thing. It's not a one moment thing, you know? Right. Just like a Saturn return, you know? It's got
the orb of the rings, and it's not over when it's over.
Right.
And you don't decide when it's over either.
No, exactly.
It shows you when it's over.
So it'd be interesting to look at the United States of America chart, human design-wise, I think, because of especially...
Brilliant idea.
Which actually, especially now, and when we looked at this just like an hour and a half ago, I was like, oh my gosh. So guide us to our human design American chart.
Okay, so, you know, what we're doing today, disclaimer, it's theoretical in nature, because... when we think of the country of the United States, in a way, it does have a body. It doesn't have a human body. It doesn't necessarily have a 9-centered body, but it does have a physicality. And when I first pulled up this chart today, you know, the way that I always read is like, oh no, only do the personality side, like I just showed you guys. But for a country, I feel like it's valid to actually bring the body side into it and the design side.
I mean, we all have
because
usually a dollar in our pocket that says United States of America, or we have something in our life that we physically have that says United States of America. If you're an American, or if you're in another country, you have something that says your country on it. USA, we all have a passport. So we do have a physicality to all this. And there's a physicality embedded by the Masons in the cornerstones of this country. So they actually gridded this country.
Where are those?
The Capitol building is where Washington did his. That's the biggest one. So at the Capitol building, Washington laid the foundation of Washington, D.C. right after the war and after the Constitution was done at the end of the 1700s. But the document itself, the Declaration of Independence, was especially in an old way, right? Like quill, ink, pen. That was not like paper we see today. That was like real fucking wood. Right.
Papyrus.
Like papyrus. And they made copies of it, but they literally signed it, stamped it, and finished it in Philadelphia, at sunset when the last signature was done. And they all met in that room, and there was an embodiment of we're all individually and for a collective embodying an independence from a king that's tyrannical. 3,000 miles away. You know what I mean?
So here we have it. The chart of the United States of America, the human design chart.
Somebody put social security numbers. That came later though, but yeah.
Oh, I was like, what?
That was actually banned by the Supreme Court, and then it got, FDR came in and then packed the court and got that to pass.
Yay. So anyway, chart of the United States.
Oh, yeah, you might have to reconnect. What? You might have to reconnect. I mean, I can...
Warning, incoming connection.
I could show it on mine real quick, just like the actual astrology real quick, just so people could see. And how kind of crazy some of these times are, especially like if we kind of, if we do right now, the full moon that's coming here, and I can move it to the hours. It's happening here about 6 a.m. Right? So it's kind of interesting to see here. Oh yeah, hold on, I went too far. 19. The fact that the moon is in Aquarius in this chart, it's a sad rising. Looking at America's chart being in Cancer with Jupiter, Venus is a nice chart as an astrologer, right? Like having the two benefics conjunct in a happy place in a Cancer sun is a nice place. But, the idea or the mainframe right now of America, Mercury, Pluto finished its opposition to Mercury over the last couple of years. And that's so Pluto opposing Mercury, like this forced interjection of what control is on the mind of the country all through 2020. You have to remember too, Saturn, Pluto met opposite the Mercury of America. And that was one of my secrets behind my predictions of like, be careful. There's going to be a plan that's going to try and infect people, right? I mean, it's literally Pluto is like an infection of a
imposition,
a tick trying to get as deep into you as it can. And the fact that the new moon we just had was on the north node of America, and now here comes this full moon, and Saturn's getting closer to the natal moon of America. It's becoming a more uncomfortable place. It's not feeling free as much anymore emotionally, and at the same token, we're dealing with a Pluto return, right? And I think that for it being in the second house and dealing with values, dealing with monetary positions, dealing with, especially I think that's the core values of the country, it's being re-examined and re-looked at is, are those being held true? One thing I do like about Pluto being in Capricorn to return is if there's any place for Pluto to return in a country's chart, it's always going to be like, well, motherfucker, are you holding the fucking laws and rules of what it was set by? Mm-hmm. And so people think that Pluto will automatically change things. No, it'll eradicate the things that are not allowing the core of what the lesson is, which is to hold the rule of law or the values of those laws. So like when it comes to the Constitution today, the big question is anybody following it?
Right.
in our own government. And so it's corruption too. Pluto Capricorn's corruption of high up people and authority and all that kind of stuff. And about taking away the values of the people. The South Node in Aquarius in the second house, the moon that's now under siege right now in Aquarius. This is really where people, I think, have to wake up. Like, the people of the country are under siege by the government and by actually exterior forces too. Because there is that weird thing where, if we look at the thing in Ukraine right now, we look at what's happening with China and the Taiwan situation, we look all around, it's kind of like, what's going on? We're not usually like this. We're very protective. And I'm sure you could show in the human design now, a fucking manifester, a splenic manifester that's fucking not gonna fucking like take the hits, I guess you could say.
Right. Well, let's think about a manifestor's design. A manifestor is somebody usually who has the dense and repelling aura. So that means that, in a sense, that's what gives manifestors their impact, is that their aura is actually pushing energy out. For contrast, we have the generator who's absorbing, pulling life towards it, enveloping life. Now the manifestor is pushing out, and that's how they move energy. They're really like the bowling ball, and the rest of us are the bowling pins. So when we think of our presence and our essence as a country as like this impactful, dense, repelling force, not only that we have our personality sun in gate 39, which is the gate of provocation. We're innately provoking, we're innately provocative to whomever we're dealing with. And what are we provoking? Gate 55, which is the mutation that we're about to step into, that we're like going through right now. And it's also the gate of abundance. So it's a gate of fickleness. Gate 55 is like, oh, 1 week, I want to get married on an island in Thailand, and the next week, never mind, I just want to go to New York and live in a penthouse. And it's about this ever-changing, like ever-surging search for what makes us feel full. And that's such a huge part of the American dream, I feel, is the 39 provoking the 55 of like, what is it that's going to make us feel full of our spirit? And that definition is rapidly changing. But anyway, splenic manifestor 4-6. So the 4-6 is this opportunistic role model. So our country being somebody who is basically trying to show off through gate 21, control of resources, and gate 48, exemplary use of skill. Gate 48 is called the well. It's this depth of skill in something. So we're role modeling to the world that we're powerful, we're in control of our resources, and then we're deeply skillful. And on the personality side, the conscious side that the world knows us by, we're provoking, and we're also stubborn, because gate 38 is basically the gate of the fighter, the gate of the being that's willing to go up against anything to maintain its individual integrity. And then we have this all coming through the format of a splenic manifestor, somebody who is one of the most effective and sometimes cutthroat survivors on the planet, because manifestors just, they don't wait. They're not here to wait. They're not designed to wait. So they often don't need to wait, which means they're going straight for the next opportunity. Line 4, opportunist. So we have an impactful, very powerful survival force, because that's splenic energy. But also we have a defined ego with the money line and the 2145. So we've got a huge amount of motorized willpower to push through resistance, to prove ourselves, to show up as the top dog, as the king or queen, gate 45, and to get what we want, because that's ultimately what the money line is about. It's about your heart being set on something because it's valuable to you, and being willing to do whatever it takes to get to that, to get to the throat, to manifest what you believe is valuable or what you seek is valuable. And, Venus is in the gate of extreme. So in our identity center, we have the channel of the alpha, showing that we're here to be the top dog. But we also have the gate of extremes, saying that, we're going to show that alpha presence in a very extreme way. And that's sometimes going to be unpredictable. That sometimes it's going to be coming through in ways that are not comfortable to others, because the extremes of gate 15 are seldom welcome to people who don't carry that gate. If you yourself are not an extreme person, meeting somebody that's very extreme is not a comfortable experience. Right. And that's like how a lot of people, I guess, see us. And of course, we've got the gate of secrets in there too. So gate 13 being open to secrets, and also having a lot of secret stuff underneath the surface in line 1, which is kind of like in the cave.
Which I feel, if I could just interject for a second with all you've said, the way we're seeing America feel like it's flailing and it's not responding, it's not initiating much, it's kind of that's exactly what happened before World War II. No, we're just trying to keep the peace. But really, we were setting ourselves up for a massive takeover of the world, which we did. I almost feel like that's what we're doing again right now. And I don't think that people are aware. I think people are so like, look at the flailing. Look at how we're not initiating like we used to. We're not holding that like very splenic survival, or even that very well knowing in that G spot, or in that G center and G spot, and fucking that throat chakra and that money line, which I think is weird. Donald Trump has that line, and he was the 45th president, and it's the 45th gate. There's something ironic like when that goes missing, and you have a president who doesn't have that, right?
We need to look up those charts.
Those are charts that we should look up. Yeah, but it's like, that's what I think interesting is that I think we're intentionally, because we're actually initiating all these things in a setup to do a massive secret, like it's acting like we don't have their hypersonic missiles like China does. We don't have the ability to do this. Look at the military's becoming all woke. Look at all that, right? It's so like how FDR did it, right, in World War, right before World War II. Yeah, we have these old boats, we'll sell them. That's what we did to Taiwan. Here's some old jets. Here, Ukraine, here's some weapons. Same thing. And then boom, right when it fucking initiates, bam, 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 bam. You know what I mean? And they're keeping it secret.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, it might be the kind of thing that maybe we're the next thing that they're going to take over. Maybe the hostile takeover is on us. Maybe they're going to turn all that firepower on the people. Who knows? The one thing that hasn't been taken yet, seemingly. So, I mean, what do we have in the moon here? Gate 49, revolution. The last resort, line 2.
That's
boom.
And that's where this full moon is actually hitting.
The determination to exhaust every possible peaceful avenue for change, and then when satisfied that no other course is possible, to plan in detail before the revolution is attempted.
I mean, that's how the country was founded too.
Yeah.
But I also think that's weird that gate 49 is where this full moon is hitting.
Mm-hmm.
And so in America's chart, that full moon, can you do a connection chart to the full moon?
It'll take me a minute.
Yeah, no problem. I was going to say, I want to ask you, because you know this human design so well, would a splenic manifestor 4/6 be easily taken over by somebody else's energy and to take it over, like take them over, or control them or change them? It would come like I'm thinking of has a foreign power taken over the country to kind of like take it over?
I think it would have to come through the solar plexus, because that's the only center that's more powerful than the heart and the spleen,
which is the woke shit.
And it's also, the solar plexus is things that happen gradually over time. They're not clear until they're clear, right? You know, so it's things that seep in and build, as opposed to things that just knock you in the face. Like a splenic manifestor would just be like, you know, you're dead. But through the open solar plexus, it's like even the most powerful survivor can be infiltrated by so many bugs or whatever that it drains the blood, or I don't know, you know, it's like that slow creeping like drain kind of energy that I think could actually take down a splenic, or it's the secrets too.
Or it could be, I mean, there's a theory, right? Because a splenic manifestor 4/6 is trying to be this opportunistic role model, that's initiating the action, that's a survivalist, that's got all these aspects that are built into the different gates and centers that are defined, that are really all about kind of being the top dog, right? Mm-hmm. So it's always like, hey, no, we got you, and we know how to fix this, and we know how to do this, but without
and
kind of
maintaining the relationships.
Right, and the focus can kind of be on that without paying attention to maybe other things that it senses, but it's almost like, no, I'm still trying to be the top dog without paying attention to maybe other things. I don't know. I mean,
a 4-6 is not the most sturdy profile. Like, they are definitely tough because as a 6-line being, you have to be able to go through all that trial and error for your first 30 years or your first cycle, and to heal from all that. And just, I've noticed a lot of 6-line people go through a lot of physical stuff. They have to kind of be survivors. But a 4th line person, you know, when we look at the hexagram structure, the 4th line is the first line of the upper trigram. Now that sounds like a lot of words that most people haven't heard, but basically there are 6 lines. Lines 1, 2, and 3 set the foundation. Lines 4, 5, and 6 externalize, share that foundation. So for a 4th line person, for a 4-6, I should say, they only have the top floor of the second floor, or basically the floor, the first floor of the second structure, and the top of the roof. So if the foundation's rotten,
which there is no root defined in that chart, right? Either
if there's bad relationships that are, because that's what a 4th line person builds their foundation on. It's all about their relationships and their network. So if there is a seedy element within the relationships, that's where the collapse happens. And that's where a lot of 4th line beings can get off track. They can be very altruistic, very giving, very concerned with the other. But if they give their energy to someone who is not going where they're going, then they can get pulled down a track that's really ugly for them, and it's not even really their fault. You know, it's not because they were doing something wrong per se. Right. It's because of bad association. So,
and what's the difference between having the 6 as the unconscious line, right, opposed to if it was in the front?
Well, the 3 and the 6 are always going to be about mutation. So it depends, you know, is it your mind, is it conscious that's mutating over your life process, or is it your body? And that's obviously a very different trip, because if you have a body that's mutating, you know, it's said by Ra that the 6-line body are the people that die young the most, because they're trying, their biology is attempting to become something that's never been before. And that's a high failure rate, honestly, endeavor.
Right.
But if you have it on the conscious side, it's like that you're actually changing the mind and just how you think, or the kind of thoughts that you know, come forth with, or how you see life is what's transforming.
So, and then I have another question about all this, which is, because 6 lines are very deeply karmically connected to, we know, the Saturn return, right? But also the Chiron return. And if we look at America's chart, it has Chiron in Aries, and that Chiron return is about to show up.
Oh.
Does it come into next year? So not only is it a Pluto return coming, but it is a Chiron return. And if it's a 6-line, a Chiron return would be another cycle from moving on the roof to, what is it? When you move off the roof, you go to on the, or?
Well, yeah, when you're done with the roof, you come back down into the 3rd line world. You're just supposed to be stronger by that point. So that to be able to withstand, to be back in that 3rd line, but to be like, well, I'm the role model now. So I'm like Neo. I can walk through the frickin' bullet storm and not get killed. But if you haven't been doing the right process on your roof time, and you haven't been preparing to be that role model that re-enters, which is what I've seen a lot of, unfortunately, role model people who are going into their Chiron return, they don't prepare because they didn't know. And then when they get foisted off that roof that's super comfortable and nice and peaceful, they're like the most lost they've ever been, you know, at 50.
Which
51.
Chiron and Aries would definitely be in the chart of America. This very activated, oh shit, I got to take action again, kind of like an ego, or I mean, well, you had brought up that it almost could have been an ego manifestor, but because it's splenic, it overpowers that.
Right.
So there is that survival Aries got it. It's almost like America might come into like I'm kind of sensing of this. It might look this way, but America's going to do this whole fucking last stand, as you even said, like last resort. And also with Chiron return coming up, there is that 6-line feature of it getting thrown back down off the roof. And if you think of the last 2 years, something like that, the roof is, right? It's about 21 years. And that was 9/11, you know? And so we kind of went on the roof after 9/11, which is kind of weird if you think about it. If you think of the Saturn return, fucking that happened. Well, that would have been in Libra, which would have been in the 80s, actually. But so we would have gone on the roof in the 80s and then...
Which was fun.
Which was, yeah.
I wasn't there. I wasn't here, but...
Right.
It seems fun. The music's good.
Right. But now we're coming off that roof.
But it was kind of a dream. You know, it wasn't very realistic. It was like kind of like, oh, plastic and glitter and like everything's okay.
But then we had the Saturn return, though, that did happen in 2011, 2012. So that was definitely a weird feeling of that America kind of gone. But so it's really the 2011 Saturn return on the roof, where it has felt that way. America has felt like it's been just kind of in this weird, like, doing the kind of, well, what's best and what, and not so like, you know, it's like you don't see people with American flags anymore as much. You don't see people, right? You don't see like...
Well, we've been bouncing back and forth. I feel like we've gone like really lib and then...
Yeah, and then really
like
right with Trump and then back.
All that kind of recedes and something else comes in. And I think it's like planted all these different seeds and systems that are still lying in wait. And once that overarching energy that's like kind of controlling it all breaks down, that's when all those like seed pods sprout and all those micro communities and micro niches and cliques of different belief systems and ideologies really kind of like take power. And that's the Sleeping Phoenix era. It's when we go from this like, we're all together in this tribe. And, you know, it's the money that's really keeping the bargain together. So when like that goes out the window, that bargain is not so strong. You know, that bond of the tribe is not what it was the day before.
Right.
And it becomes survival of the fittest, Sleeping Phoenix. Like, God is telling me how to survive right now through my body. And I have to follow this to a T. Or if I'm 1 millimeter off, I could be just like, boom, wrong place, wrong time.
Does that scare you when you hear the things like by 2030 that, oh, you'll own nothing and like it, and you like even the CBDC, like the way that they're trying to bring out a digital dollar, right? And that they're gonna just like no cash will exist, and basically like unless you're doing what the system wants, you'll get your money. If you don't, then you don't get your money.
It's like what we were saying about them trying to artificially extend the cost of planning. Right. And keep the bargain going, but in this more like insidiously overpowering way. But I think, no, it doesn't really scare me because in a sense, I've been preparing for this since 2011 in my own energy. Right. And I knew that and still know that I'm here to take alternative measures, you know? Right.
So I think, is there a way... I know there's a way, but like if we could look at the full moon for America's chart, and then if we could run a Chiron return chart, the most current one that's approaching for the chart in HD, because there was something you brought up earlier too, as you're looking that up, which is that it doesn't have a defined sacral. And there is that American like workhorse, like without it having, you know, some people work till they're just dead in America. And
that's what happens.
Right.
When you have an open sacral and you try to work.
Right. And then without using especially that splenic thing, like this isn't really going to make me feel good or survive. Like maybe I should probably pull out. There are people in America that do realize that a lot, and then they start their own businesses and stuff, which actually, if you think of America, and if it is a manifester, it is kind of like, hey, go initiate the life that you want. It's when you don't that you don't get shit in America.
Right. But be your own alpha. Right. Go after for what you really want. Use your skills and survive. 5720, pure intuition. But yeah, so here we have the full moon United States composite chart. And we can't separate out the body on this one. Still, evolving through the functionality here. But we can see some interesting things, mainly that this transit is giving us emotional definition. So we go from being the splenic manifester to the emotional manifester, a being that has no clarity in the now.
That's a 1-3 we can't do because
we're not really using the 3. So we kind of like this column, for those of you watching at home, we're not factoring this in fully.
We're only looking at the black side. Right?
Yeah.
And then in the center one, we're only looking at the red ones, right? And
well, in the center, I'll just walk everyone through that one because it can get kind of complex there with all the different colors. But basically, we can see that because Neptune is in the 36, and that's making electromagnetic with the United States 35, which is the Jupiter placement. We've got this whole channel of it's the Jack and Jill of all trades. It's called the channel of transitoriness. So basically, it's just the channel that initiates new experiences for experience's sake. But we've got Neptune there connecting to Jupiter. So the crisis that we are experiencing at this time is veiled in some way. We don't understand the true nature of the crisis that is launching our experiences. That's just how Neptune works. We can't see it. Even the people that feel like they see it don't actually see the macro. But it is interesting to note that what is launching our experiential way right now is an interplay between transiting Neptune, the United States' natal Jupiter, and then also we have, well, the 30 doesn't really count, so we're not going to count that bottom one because it's coming from the unconscious of the full moon. So either way, we still have the 41 strongly in play from the US's South Node. And yeah, that's just kind of like what gives the US its push for seeking out the future and seeking out new experiences. But a lot of times experiences that cause us to lose something or drain something.
Wow.
And the fact that we're emotionally defined now with Neptune, it's like already the solar plexus is kind of Neptunian because it's never fully clear. Even when you have that sense of emotional clarity, if this is your authority, you're still only at 90%. Like the solar plexus isn't capable of 100% clarity. So there's something to be said about how we're just not clear right now. Even if we feel like we're driving towards something as a nation, I'm not talking about us as individuals, but we're driving towards something as a nation. Maybe on the mainstream, people are like, oh yeah, electric vehicles, climate betterment, more freaking stimulus checks, whatever the case may be.
Armed literal IRS agents, 87,000 new ones with guns. Just got released today that in the bill they're going to be armed and have to be willing to go into harm's way.
For
the new bill that they're just passing the Senate.
Tax collection?
Yeah, correct. Armed.
Well, that sounds like the recipe for like a civil war.
I know.
So keep those guns, everybody.
The other thing too is,
Do not give those up.
What's interesting is the Neptune in America's chart is at 22 Virgo, and Neptune's retrograding back to 22 Pisces. So we're dealing with a Neptune opposition at the same time as a Pluto return and the upcoming Chiron return on its beginnings, and a Mars retrograde in Gemini, which Mars is in Gemini in America's chart that it will retrograde over. And the last time that Mars retrograded fully through Gemini was in 1943, November through January of 1944, which was the peak of World War II. The last time there was a full Mars retrograde in Gemini, not in Cancer or not back into Taurus, like fully. Mm-hmm. And this one actually goes over the Mars in Gemini.
And is that the 7th house for the U.S.?
Yeah. And that's really when America really ramped up the war. So, because Pearl Harbor happened in 41, with that Mars retrograde and it coming direct. And it was kind of like, okay, we got attacked, but it took us a while to really start, getting the draft done through 42 and start, going to the Pacific first, because that's where we got hit. But then it was like our allies needed help in Europe. So it was like, okay, we need to go build a coalition with the Brits. And then that's when finally Stalin and Russia were like, or the USSR were like, hey, okay, fucking Germany's starting to fuck with us, right? Italy, Mussolini, like Hitler saves him, right? And that's where it gets fucking to a clusterfuck of two different sides of the planet that we're trying to deal with. And if you look at this astrology and then you like think of like where we're at, like, I don't know how better else to say it's coming to war. Like, I mean, it sounds scary, but I mean, like, this is the last time Mars retrograded in Gemini through the whole sign was in the middle of World War II, and Mars is in Gemini, and you also have Saturn on America's moon. This is gonna be an uncomfortable next year, rest of this year. Really it's gonna get really uncomfortable with the Pluto return time, with Saturn on the moon of America as it's leaving Aquarius, coming into Pisces, and a Pluto return and a Mars retrograde that hasn't happened since 1943 into 44. I mean, it's the recipe for all those kind of things. And it's like the last moment of America on the roof before it's going to have to be thrown back down off the roof.
Right. And that's where I think this kind of Neptunian quality of it being a emotional transit is like, we haven't actually been preparing for the right thing. We've been preparing for like a continuation of our roof identity.
Right.
And we're about to be thrown on our face.
Which, interesting, if
I
you
fell off a roof once.
I'm sure you have. 2011 is when the transformation from television to YouTube began. 2011 is the beginning of Instagram in 2012, right? This propped up roof of, image, especially Saturn in Libra too, like this whole piece, but it's in square to the sun in Cancer. It's actually not good for us emotionally when we do kind of live in this authoritative place that we kind of identify as peaceful, especially when it's an injustice to where people are committing more suicide because of these things.
Right.
The infiltration of unbalanced news and unbalanced truth, because Libra is a judge of truth, and it's exalted in Libra, and it's in square to the sun in Cancer by 1 degree. Like, so that's also the chart of a workhorse. Like, you only do it if you work hard in America. So the idea that you can turn America into a place where everybody gets free money and everybody gets Social Security for the rest of your life will never happen in this chart, ever. So it's like, like that's where, if you think of us being on this last roof, it is this kind of weird social dynamic, kind of weird injustice that's not the injustices we see that they talk about, but the injustices that are happening on a deeper emotional level that are really unfair to people by actually them not even realizing it. It's almost like with Neptune opposing Neptune right now in the natal chart of America. Can we show that, Brian, real quick? Because I think that's like,
oh, sorry.
No problem. I think it's the bottom one. Hope so. It might be the top one. But I think with this Neptune opposed Neptune, is that it or no? Yeah. Right, Neptune here in the natal chart of America, and I'll show the transits here. Boom, and I'm gonna go to that time that I'm talking about where it's a little bit creepy here. When Neptune's back, here's the Mars retrograde. So let's look at this. Let's add this bad boy. Okay, so this is all going to be in November with the lunar eclipse, the solar eclipse, and then Mars retrograde here at 24. So last time that this happened, where Mars went through the whole sign of Gemini, was in 1943 to 44, in the middle of the war. Then you have Neptune stationing at 22 Pisces and opposing directly the natal of Neptune in Virgo at 22. At the same time, you have Pluto, which is direct now, ready to do another pass, the third pass of the Pluto return. And then you have Saturn coming direct, knowing it's heading towards the moon, and which is in astrology, we know, one of the hardest transits in astrology of uncomfort. One of the hardest transits in astrology. One of the most delusional, especially I think Neptune and Pisces formed to a Neptune opposition in Virgo, is kind of like changing the reality without maintaining any reality at all. Like there has to be a balance. Like it's like, okay, let's dream a little bit, but let's also remember there's a reality too. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of going off the rocker here, because at least Mars being in Gemini, being in America's chart, no matter what time it was, the fact that Mars is going to retrograde over Mars, that's a serious time in anybody's life. It actually is a resurgence after the retrograde. It's really strong. And that's what happened in 44. America was like, we're going to fucking form this D-Day in June, and fucking we've got all the new boats, and we've got all the fucking draft people, and we're going to fucking go into fucking Europe, and we're going to go take over fucking Germany, and USSR is coming from the other side.
This thing, yeah.
And it was the meetings of that happened in the Mars retrograde. Right? I have goosebumps. So then you have Chiron, which is going to finish its retrograde here at 12, and we just saw it retrograde at 16. So as we're coming into November and into the beginning of 2023, you have a Chiron return, you have the Neptune opposition finishing, you have Saturn all over this moon, and you have the Pluto return happening, and then coming into Aquarius where the Revolutionary War literally started. And you have World War II aspects as well, and Uranus and Taurus with the North Node. This is where Hitler went crazy and started invading Poland, and what in that transit that we're having. And then here's the on the roof moment of the Saturn return in 2021 or 2011. That's coming to its kind of weird close, because it's always the transit after in a sixth line, which is a Chiron return. Mm-hmm. And then Mars stations at 8 degrees of Gemini on January 8th of 23, right on the Uranus of America. Which, that is the spot of where the greatest wars have ever happened, is when it activates the Uranus in America's chart. The other thing I got to say about that is Joe Biden's Saturn sits at 9 Gemini. And then if you think of Trump's sun, did we lose me? Oh, that sucks. But Trump's sun is really, hold on. You have Trump's sun and North Node that are going to be hit by this Mars retrograde exactly. Right? So you have both presidents, the Mars retrograde is hitting both of them. At the same time. So it's like, are we really going to go and even see a Trump or Biden president? You know, like I think we're going into a completely different space.
Yeah. And the Chiron placement for the US is in the gate of shock.
Yeah, so if I were to take this real quick, and if I were to take, where is it? Select from file and go into, I think I have it under entertainers here. And if I were to go to, maybe I put it in, maybe I did put it in my, samples, maybe I put it in. They always, here, we'll do not Justin Bieber. Here we go. Let's do Joe Biden. So Joe Biden's Saturn sits right there on the Uranus, and look at how also at the same time Joe Biden's South Node is sitting at 0 Pisces, where Saturn is going to come into the beginning of 2023. And also Joe Biden's Jupiter sits at 25 on that Mercury, which we've just been seeing this opposition to. So there's a lot of weird aspects with the Joe Biden Saturn on the Uranus, and Mars coming on top of that Uranus, which is very unpredictable and not stable at all for his Saturn, right? And I think that's an interesting thing. And then even understanding Joe Biden's chart, he's a Pisces rising. A Sag rising, and so all of his planets, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Mars, and Scorpio here are all in the 12th house, especially his Sun and Venus of America's chart, but also all the eclipses are going to be hitting, and Saturn squaring, and America's moon squares Joe Biden's sun, squares his Venus. So do
you have the chart for Joe Biden's robot double?
I don't.
Damn.
But I do have Trump's chart in here somewhere. I just have to take a second to find it. Let me see if I have it, because I've done so many. Man. Oh, it's in business, huh? No. I put it in. I know I put it in. Like, there's like an extra 2 entertainers in here, so. It's so weird. Samples. Here we go. So then when you take, and I'll do a third one with the transits. I haven't used this software in so long. Here we go, where I was at earlier. So you have it for Trump, right? Mars retrograding over his Sun rising Uranus, right? That's going to be pretty crazy. And while at the same time, I think those are the kind of the main themes here, but like Joe Biden's Jupiter sits on his Venus, which is a very interesting thing. And that's been where we've been seeing the Pluto opposition and stuff, but that's kind of the era of that ending. And so I feel like both of their eras are kind of coming to a close here with this, even this full moon, with what we're seeing right now.
What about Arch Android Kamala?
Oh, she's like the most interesting of them all, because I feel like, and I'll put her in. Let's do a new chart. I'll bring it here, and then let's do a current transit, and then
She's Hunger Game vibes for sure.
Well, I think the scary part for her is her full moon position, which I know she's October. Hold on. Here we go. I got her birth. I got her birth info. She's October 20th of 64. Oh man. Yeah, her chart is gonna implode America in a really, I don't know which direction. I mean, it's definitely not going to be a subtle thing. It's definitely going to be a shocking and for her, my big question to her is she going to be able to handle it as her soul is? Because the amount of craziness that's going to be activated, that it's activating right now. That's why you're seeing her Pluto squaring her sun and moon exactly. And wait till I show you this. It's crazy. It's like she's at a place to where she also is against the Constitution of America, or sorry, the Declaration of Independence of America. So, like, that's where I think, Oakland. Here we go. And she's a female. Go 9. Yeah, 20. Okay, save. We're going to put her in entertainers. She's just an entertainer. Okay, so let's do America's chart and let's go on the outside with her. And this is what's crazy, is this. So when we look at her natal chart, she's born a sun in Libra at 27, and she has a full moon exactly at 27 Aries. squaring the Pluto of America, 27. Right? So even herself going through the transit right now, she also was born with Saturn at 28 retrograde. So she's about to go through her Saturn return on America's moon. And her Saturn sits on America's moon. Talk about uncomfortable. Talk about not a safe feeling for the country. The most unsafe feeling there will ever be in the country of all time. I mean, you could look at it, though, as maybe because maybe the programming in America has always had to be a male president, so it might be just like a new evolution of being comfortable with a feminine president. So that might be where, that might be part of it, too. Like, I'm willing to look at it from all angles, right? But there's definitely a very weird uncomfort and also a very big kind of attack on the Declaration of Independence at Pluto's 27 by exact degree of full moon. And she's going through Pluto square sun. So talk about secrets and what she's doing right now.
I mean, her personality sun is in gate 50, the shadow of which is literally corruption when we look at it through the Gene Keys lens.
Oh, really?
Right. And then she's got...
Here, hold on. I'm going to get off here. He's saying that now you can go on Mac Mini. Oh, you do?
So should I go on Mac Mini or what? Okay. This one's not interactive because I just pulled her up off the internet, but...
That's fine. We can...
The full moon that she has in gate 3 has the shadow of chaos, as its shadow state, and 50 is corruption. So this was somebody as a line 2 that was either going to find their most natural track to the highest refinement of values, gate 50. She's born on the cross of laws. So basically somebody that is designed to bring harmony. Gate 50 is the Ting, which is this ancient Chinese cooking pot in which the inscriptions hold all of the customs and the rituals and the things that make for a good, healthy life. So it's meant to be this storehouse of wisdom, and it's not just on a conceptual level. Gate 50 is in the spleen, and it's actually the place where we establish health, where the sacral connects to the spleen and generates the life force in a healthy, surviving way. So when that goes the wrong way, that becomes that's like when genes are getting lost in translation, basically. This is like the corruption in the genetic code itself that creates cancerous cells, that creates deformities, that creates mutation in the wrong way. And then she's also got the channel of mutation in her chart, which means that she is innately a being that creates mutation by what she engages in. And of course, the kind of mutation that anybody is going to catalyze is a reflection of their own integrity. So is the mutation a positive change towards something better, or is it corrupting the actual inherent coding of something and bringing the law down? So
when she ran, I don't know if you remember she was a district attorney, and then she was the attorney general of California, right? So she was the main one in charge of laws, and so she was putting all these people away from marijuana. And then when she was running for president, went on podcasts and like, yeah, I smoke weed, it's no big deal, while she had incarcerated hundreds of people for marijuana, but was like saying it's cool now. And that's what Tulsi Gabbard called her out on. And so when it comes to like laws, it's like she was like this hardcore person with laws in California, and then like left all those people in jail, but then now is advocating for the opposite of it, but not doing anything about the people that she incarcerated.
So there we have like kind of the shadow of a line 2 person. Line 2, the hermit, lacks introspection. They don't have the introspective quality. Ultimately, they're not designed to. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. But when you're a line 2 person, you're here to be really dedicated to your direction. It's like you have that one thing that you're really good at, or that set of things that you're really good at. So when you jump those tracks and you're going in the wrong direction, you're going in that wrong direction really freaking hard. And there's a lot of that. It's almost like she was designed to go one way or the other. This was like
well,
a very
and
all
she
or
did
nothing.
come into even politics and all that by Montel Williams, right? She was Montel Williams' girlfriend for a while to get in.
Really?
That's how she got popular, and she literally 2-4'd it. Every new person that she could that got her to the tracks that she wanted to, slept with, and was involved in, scandalous like cheating cycles and all these kind of crazy things.
She's got the Gate of the Wanderer in line 4. So she was the wanderess through her social network for a while. And that's probably where she was learning about Gate 60, all those limitations that she could transcend through informal relationships.
Yeah, and so I feel like, especially the fact that her full moon squares Pluto's America, right? And we're going through the American Pluto return. She's a catalyst to the Pluto return too, 100%. And at that time, as we come into November, it's activated extremely, while at the same time there is a Mars retrograde happening over Trump, over fucking Biden's chart. So there is kind of this, for her activation with her North Node being in Gemini, she has a North Node in Gemini at 24. It's lit. Mars is retrograding exactly on her North Node. But Neptune's squaring her nodes. And when Neptune is square the nodes of anybody with Gemini and Sag, like Trump's going through, like I went through when earlier in the Neptune transit, because my nodes are early degrees, you are anxiety ridden. You don't know what the fuck's going on. You feel disassociated. And you can tell she feels disassociated. So it's scary without her spleen to be able, at least when I was disassociated, my splenic authority kept me alive and kept me to get through it, right? And be like, okay, I need to get help. And I was still like able to like do shit.
Survive, yeah.
But like, especially that America's a splenic authority and then she's not got any splenic anything. It's almost like
having the channel mutation is basically what makes her type. This is a really difficult energy to have. The channel mutation is not easy because it's not doing what you want it to do. It's always going to be the X factor. It's always going to be, you think it's going to go this way and it goes that way, right?
Think about this. Remember last week when we were talking about Pluto leaving the 60th and going one more time back out of the 60th gate, and then it comes back in during this November period when the Mars retrograde is going to be happening, when the Pluto return is going to be happening, when Neptune opposed Neptune is going to be happening, when the eclipses are going to be happening. And think about this when you think of the war stuff. Imagine the chaos of the midterm elections. The Republicans win everything, but the frustration of a Pluto 60th gate that they can't go into the Congress and the Senate yet and be there until January, right? Because you have to wait. And then a president switching, right? And her being there, and then a war breaking out, and nobody that's elected, that now got elected, could go into the positions to do something about it. Talk about a fuck show. That's what's coming, Talk about a fuck show.
And I'm sure there's going to be something right as Pluto is crossing her unconscious Earth here in 60 line 4 that really kind of grounds like what this looks like. And that's, I'm going to check the ephemeris now, so it's not as pretty on the screen, but just wanted to see when we might be able to see that movement into 60 line 4 and when that. So yeah, starting in February 18th of 2023, her chart starts to get really her unconscious.
Well, that's what's crazy is by that period, after the midterm elections, that's when, the new congressmen and women and the new senators will be in. And if it's Republican, that's when they can just start impeachment. Right? That's when also it's Congress that defines what war is, right? So if she wants to go to war, and that's what's frustrating, America just voted to get all these motherfuckers out. And then there's a war happening because of all the events that Joe Biden and they've been setting up. And then she's at the helm, and the Congress are still Democrats, but they've been voted out, but they still have their last, month and a half, 2 months left. Talk about the frustration of the people with Saturn then coming on the moon and the uncomfort of like, we can't do anything about it.
Yep. Just got to
right
crunch through that moon.
Or
Saturn.
her declaring war and doing kind of a Bush thing, even though America did declare war on Afghanistan. They voted for it in the end, but they kind of didn't, right? Or the war in Iraq. Like, it kind of was a weird, like, let's make a Patriot Act and let's do these, like wars are declared in Congress. That's what it says in the Constitution, right? So, like, the Congress has to be like, we're going to war, right? The House has to all agree we're going to war. A declaration of war is declared by Congress, not the president. People forget that. But that's where you start to look at this Pluto return in America as we all have to be ready for the craziest shit we're ever going to see in our lives, based off the Mars retrograde, based off the Pluto return, based off the figures at play are all having crazy activations that are just over the top, all at the same time. That's all happening with eclipses in Scorpio and Taurus, you know, that are really, I think, in America's chart difficult because they're happening in the 5th, 11th, or however you want to look at them, the 12th and 6th, if you use whole sign. It's and Neptune opposing Neptune, it's a confusing, massive time. That's going to be the last moment of the most confusing before Pluto Aquarius shocks everything and puts us all into a new world that we're going to be like, what the fuck is this, which we've been talking about. That this is really the beginning of the activation of the sleeping Phoenix cross. Like, you know, it's not just by 2027. This is the stuff that is leading us into that.
Yeah.
And we're here with this full moon now in Aquarius. That's the wake up call of all this that's coming and to stop. And I love how you use the platform. It's just like, you got to get on this platform now. And now you've been through enough fucking crazy shit to know I ain't taking these frequencies on. I ain't taking in this energy no more. That will fuck me up. And I'm good.
And that's including spiritual, so-called spiritual nonsense that's propagated throughout the spiritual community that actually disempowers you because it keeps ensuring you that everything's going to be fine if you just keep holding the frequency of love and light. No. Like, it's actually, that's what this is like when you're saying, oh, this is the crossover into the sleeping Phoenix. It's like, yeah, we're beginning to see that this is a very real game. You know, it's not just spiritual warfare. It's like, actually, you have to move your body and get out of the way, potentially. And that's survival. That's where this whole, like, individual survival paradigm is coming in. And at the same time, because we have tools like human design, we don't have to face that daunting reality of survival in the same way that we used to. Because survival doesn't necessarily have to mean struggle and fear and strife and just like almost dying all the time. Survival can mean, I'm so in tune with my innate inner authority that I'm already 2 steps ahead of what the crisis was going to be. Even though I didn't know what the crisis was going to be, my body already moved me to my proper position on the grids to be where I need to be a part of what's important for the future of humanity, not just part of this, you know, play of the Maya. Because ultimately, when we zoom out, all of these events, that's what they are. They're just the machinations of the program doing its thing. If we don't have to take it personally, we don't have to make it even that big of a deal, as long as we've got ourselves in tune with what's important, which is our own authority. And that goes beyond sovereignty.
It does. And coming back to this full moon in Aquarius, it is also a moment to break out of the program that really wants to run in this craziness that's coming, run its operation and run its program of planning that has a plan that really, coming from a not so crazy point, but just coming from like a simple program understanding, is just like, it has a plan for you. And this is your moment where you don't need to go through that. You can step away from that crazy plan and put yourself in a better position and start being part of the, you know, the place where you can be your true authentic self, where you're the program that's changing the way things go. And that's why I really think there is no more fuck ups after this one. It literally is crazy town. And I know we thought we went through crazy town, but like that was the lobby.
Thank God we had that.
Yeah, thank God we had that. But I think a lot of people are attached to like, I can't do this anymore. And it's like, this is the lobby. You didn't get your popcorn. You didn't. And you know, it's weird that the expression, the popcorn, has been so used so much over the last 2 years. It's literally true. It's like, you can get good seats for this crazy show and be in your true, just like you said, follow your human design, follow your strategy and authority. And you'll know there'll be a moment where it's like, actually, these seats weren't good. Let's pick up and just move one more seat back. Oh, okay.
And then you won't be in the splash zone.
And then you won't be in the splash zone of fucking, you know, whatever the fuck
acid or whatever
splash being on you. And that's where I feel like this full moon's taking us. It is also taking us in many theories and ways, astrologically, to a very, you know, tough choice emotionally in all of our lives. Of, are we going to continue running the loops like you've been talking about, I've been talking about, and with Uranus squaring it all, like, can you break free into your true understanding of yourself and the true values? And again, like when we covered a couple weeks ago, this North Node Uranus transit, which now is over, right? It ended here on the 10th, right? The day before the full moon. And even you said, you were like, yeah, I'd give some people till the 10th. You know, it's like, nope, man, there's no more fucking, you know, lessons left of knowing how to know how you got to drop things that are of no value and go to what is. I mean, there really is, you can't hold extra weight anymore either.
You'll break your body against it.
Yeah.
And that's your vehicle. And you're going to need that vehicle to traverse this adventure we're on.
Well, somebody brought up, but what about sidereal and tropical? It's like, look at it, the planets. They're all at the end of the zodiac. So they're all in the same sign, you know. We're going to see Saturn, of course, that just went back into Capricorn. So that's kind of interesting. But
sidereally?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's 22 Aquarius. So it just went back into Capricorn. But, and then Neptune's going to go back into Aquarius for a second. But that again is one of those things that you use sidereal to be like, oh, they're shifting signs. They're going back one more time and then coming back in. Whilst in the Western, they're about to go into new signs. You know what I mean, too? Like, I think that people aren't seeing the common correlations, how both systems work. It just depends on how you look at it. The planets are never wrong from any system, if that makes sense. It's just about how you have to understand and be willing to look at all systems. It's like people who don't look at human design, right? It's like you're missing out on a lot here. Or people who don't understand the sidereal, right? And they're just Western. Like, you don't get how the precession works. Like, it's important. Or people who are sidereal who are like, no tropical. But it's like, we based the whole zodiac off the tropical zodiac, you know? So it's one of those places where this is a time where, you know, even the wars we're seeing in our spiritual community, astrologically or human design or any of this stuff, it's like, they're all connected. And that's the whole point, is I think that the tribal bonds that are breaking are the ones, like you said, that are associated with like the money line, right? Or like this kind of like, or formation of like, you know, what we're bonding together with through kind of like these fake emotional things. Whereas like all these divination tools are not fake. They're all of divine value. So like that sleeping phoenix isn't going to destroy the divine things. It's going to destroy everything that's fucking fake. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's like, am I right? Or
yeah, it's the destroyer of false devotion. So
right.
All the things that, you know, take us from our truth, you know, that aren't aligned with nature, basically, that aren't aligned with cosmic order, is what the phoenix is here to burn down. And there's so much depth to that illusion, and a lot of that is so entrenched in our daily lives that it's just not going to be that fun in a lot of ways. But it is, in a much more cold and cosmic and macro look, that's what's happening. It's a purging, it's a purification.
Which, if you use Vedic astrology in a Saturn moon conjunction, it is the Sati Sati, right? And so the build up to the conjunction comes in phases. Like you start feeling it in the sign prior. And then it's a slow build up. And by the time you get to the peak, that's the peak, right? So that's what we're seeing at the end of this year, the beginning of 2023, is Saturn on the moon. And then you start to see the diminishment of it. But it's a 7-year cycle. Like it's not a, oh, Saturn's on my moon today for the next 3-4 weeks. And then I'm done. I'm done with the transit. It's like, no, you can always feel when Saturn's coming close to your moon. And that's where the Vedic astrologers have a little bit more of that old, really old embedded, they don't break a lot of their codes. They don't mutate a lot, which is kind of what they do, right? Like where Western is like, we're going to bring in Chiron, we're going to bring in Eros, we're going to bring in Aries, we're going to bring, right? Like, so that's the beauty of both. But it's like when you take a Western approach and mix it with a Vedic approach of a Saturn moon and erase the signs even. They have something so solid when it comes to this, where it's like, we've been feeling this for a long time and it's coming to a crescendo. Then you have a Pluto return that's coming to a crescendo. Then you can use a Sadie Sati on a return too, if you think about it. They don't really get into the return so much, right? Only the transits of very hard aspects, right? Of like, and they're more conjunctions. They don't really get into squares much and opposition. They go more into like, oh, your Saturn's on your moon? Oh, shit, right? Like that's the one they go, uh-oh, right? Or if you're switching in Mahadashas and you're looking at what, Mahadashas, but those, if you're doing a country, those go in cycles over and over and over again. But so like a Saturn moon one is like a, uh-oh, which the last one would have been Saturn in Aquarius here. And that would have been during the last Iraq war when George Bush was president and then turning into Clinton, right? That was the last time that we went through something like this. But I think the weird part is because that people who were on the side that voted for Clinton and liked that, thought it was all going to go really well, right? Because of, or Joe Biden going really well because of the same feeling of like, I can't stand this George Bush guy. He's fucking dark, right? We're going to get Clinton. He's cool. He's light. He's chill. He's, he ended up fucking, lying to the American people straight to their face though. Like straight up just being like, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. And it's like, oh wait, I apologize. I did. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, wait, it's like Joe Biden, like, oh, I'm not going to raise your taxes. What just passed in the Senate? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to smash COVID. It's going to be gone. The worst COVID numbers of all time. Like, it's like, it's like the same thing happening all over again. The switch of both the same parties, the switch of both those same things. And then the people being like, I don't know about this. And so, but this one's, I think, different because of the other aspects going on. But we are in so many crescendo moments here, and the peaking out and you have to remember there's approaching and separating in astrology. And the approaching elements are what are the most extreme. The separating are okay. And we're not in separating. We're in approaching. The only separating is Saturn moving away from Pluto, but when Saturn comes direct here on October 8th, a Mars retrograde that's happening on October 30th, Pluto coming direct close to Saturn, they both are about to reveal what all these plans, what all these weird things have been going on for the last couple of years, because they finally will make their separation after they're direct and months down the road. And this has been hard because when Saturn and Pluto are within 30 degrees, they've been doing crazy, secret, deep, weird control. Last time you saw that in the 80s and 82 through 84 and 85 was the whole AIDS epidemic and the weird shit that was going on, the undercover weird shit and the economy and switching monies and fucking the way that they were doing Wall Street and all this crazy shit under Reagan and the weird shit that was going on there. And it all fucking is similar. Fauci was there. Fauci's here again. Like, I don't know how people just don't see it, but all these characters, though, are coming to their close. All of them. The new characters are what are going to come out on the other side of all this. And I think the big question is, are they going to be good or not? Or have they been preset by other people?
They came through the portal at CERN.
Or, yeah, is that why they're
being debriefed right now?
Right. Yeah. Like the CGIs are being swapped. To the new program, an updated one that looks way more real and way more, and has used the AI system and used the quad computer to be like, okay, I've seen everybody's Instagram messages to each other. I've seen everybody's WhatsApps to each other. I've seen everybody's text messages to each other. I've heard every phone call. this is the CGI that will work.
Enter the Antichrist.
Correct. Basically, yeah. Using this AI system and these quad supercomputers. That's this, I think, the great secret of what's happening in America, because if you think of the internet, it's America that's the internet. All the lines run from America to the countries under the ocean. It's America, Google, but all these other companies that, you know, people forget about, you know, the companies that came before Google and all these things. You know, like there's so much that people don't get, that it is run through America. The lines of telephones, the lines of all the interconnection that we see in the internet, which is very Aquarian, is from America to these countries. It's not like we're sending it satellite until you add the weird thing of Elon Musk and his fucking star fucking fleet fucking, you know, Skynet, basically, that he's creating his own 5G that he's blasting on the earth right now for his cars. But for his cars that are going to be the AMCs of the 70s, they look weird. It's Chiron and Aries. They seem like it's a good thing, and then they all start blowing up, like you're seeing them blow up. The 50% of them, the windshields fall off, the doors fall off after the first time, lights fall off. The number one most unreliable car is a Tesla in the world. So same thing happened with AMC. It's like the setup for something else, right? For his brain chip operation, you know, like who knows why he went into Twitter to try and buy it. Maybe he took fucking an algorithm or got the algorithm. That's all he needs. He's that kind of guy. I just need the algorithm. I'll say it. I'll put up 44 billion and show people and get the money just to go, oh yeah, that's your algorithm. Thanks. Bye. Not buying it.
A really well-designed evil mastermind.
The best. When
Really,
you look into
really
the
playing a
history of
strong
him and PayPal and all these kind of things, right? And how PayPal's like the number one fucking center that is cutting off people from payments. If you do astrology, you do all these, you have to know how to set up your businesses when it comes to PayPal, because they'll just shut you down.
Yeah. I've been hearing about that too.
And so it's like, you know, people like praise this guy, but it's like, I don't know. There's something about him that, you know, is very off. Or the fact of how obsessed he is with going to Mars and creating this idea that we could live on Mars. It's a little scary to me. And how you know, how he's taken over the whole space program of America's NASA, right? Like, I mean, he's the Von Braun of our age now. That was the other thing that I did on High Vibe yesterday on my Leo King Live, was during the Mars retrograde in Gemini that's coming. The last one we had in 43 into 44 was when, you know, Werner von Braun, that was a German. He was a high esteemed at the top of, you know, the SS with fucking Hitler as the head SS rocket scientist. He came out with the V2 rocket program and Hitler ordered 12,000 V2 rockets from him. And that's where they started the V2 rocket program, which literally they were building them in these secret bunkers. And that's what we started targeting. But ironically, we weren't targeting to liberate Holocaust camps like Auschwitz. No, we were more worried about those V2 rocket fucking places. And then they never did get to come out. But then we have him make the atom bomb. And then I show the same Mars retrograde that came after, but not similar, but like it was in Gemini. And it was from Gemini. It was from Cancer. It was from Gemini back into Taurus. It was 61. And it was when JFK was president, and JFK and Werner von Braun are walking, talking about going to the moon together. Another Nazi walking with a president, you know what I mean? So Elon Musk, who is from South Africa, he's not American, right? And South Africa is working with Russia right now, working with China on the new fucking currency. So that's going to be a country that's part of the, in our minds, right, the axis of evil that's coming. South Africa is part of, they're joining with Egypt. They're joining with all them. Let's go on that new currency with them. They're not aligning with the West. They're not aligning with the West even in the Ukraine thing. And he comes from there. So it's like, is he going to be somebody that China steals from us? And that was the whole plan the whole time. And he has all of our plans and all of our understandings and all of our things. People don't think about that yet. Just the way you think of Edward Snowden, right? And how, yeah, he's been in Russia the whole time. And he exposed to all of us that our phones are being spied on by the government. And people seem to forget and seem to think, nah, it's not happening. No, it's happening. He fucking showed us. He fucking goes on. He's been disappeared though the last like fucking year. Have you noticed that? And especially with this whole Ukraine thing, gone. No word. So Russia has him. He knows all the fucking secrets. What is going to happen here? When I look at the transit of von Braun, and all the top brass that were the smartest scientists in the SS of Hitler's fucking world, there's something about, I don't think people are thinking about, what if they all work for China, or what if they're all going to China? Or we don't know. We don't know. But it's going to be fucking crazy.
It's crazy to think how I think the figure is over 800 million people scattered throughout, Eastern Europe, Middle East, Western Europe are descendants of Genghis Khan, because he had so many kids in his lifetime.
Saturn, Pluto, and Capricorn.
And basically a lot of these people, including Elon Musk, are like extensions of like the Khan empire, and are still carrying on the same kind of energy, same kind of genetic coding, which is just infiltrate, dominate, take over, just for the sake of it, just for the sake of the grandeur of like total domination. And you can see it in his face. If you really look at some comparisons, that's a Khan.
Well, if you think, it was in 1284 when Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, and Capricorn met, the same thing that just happened in 2020. It was like Elon Musk was popular, but not till the pandemic. You know what I'm talking about? Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, same thing, Genghis Khan. Go look it up. 1284, that's when Genghis Khan was taking over Mongolia and going outside and fucking being his craziest. He was going for his big control conquest. Same transit as the Knights Templar going out for the Catholic Church, and right? Mm-hmm. This is the Holy Land, and we're fucking taking it over. Same time. So the fact that you even just brought that up just blows my mind, because I've been trying to tell people fucking this whole time, like, Genghis Khan is the other part of it, And Genghis Khan was not a fucking chill motherfucker, or nor did he care about the people that when they went and took over, they fucking cut people's heads off, sledged them. The pictures of him and the blood on every fucking sword, and people don't realize it gave zero fucks. I don't think Genghis manifester. Yeah, I don't think that fucking Genghis Khan was sitting there on a fucking mountain doing fucking meditation and tea.
No, he was constantly killing.
I know.
Like when the manifestors were really manifestory back in the day. Now they're all nice and sweet, and they do yoga.
You know what's really weird when you watch the whole like Elon Musk story at the very beginning? It was like, oh my God, like he's so rich because with the PayPal thing, and then he got paid out. He went and bought like a McLaren, and then like rolled it out when he was really young. And so like they used that video of like showing why he wanted to form Tesla, because he loved like really extreme crazy cars and shit like that, and like the beginning of McLaren and all that kind of weird shit. But it's like when you looked at him and you looked at the car, I'm like, I don't see this guy driving this car. Literally, I don't even see, a lot of video of him like driving the cars like crazy. Like somebody like me who loves cars and buys the cars, like you see me, I do lives in it, I take pictures of the cars, I put them up. The motherfucker never like it's like all preset like press release shit of the cars. It's not like his love of the car. You know what I'm talking about? Like when you think of Henry Ford, when he created Ford, that guy was in the factory the whole time. He was yelling at the people, and he was making those fucking factories be the first fucking, people think the first car was fucking Henry Ford and Ford. It wasn't. It was Mercedes-Benz, but it wasn't Mercedes-Benz back in the day. It was Daimler, and the daughter of the two, one of the guys was Daimler, the other last name was Benz, right? But the daughter of Daimler was Mercedes, and he wanted to use his daughter's name with his partner's name. The last name was Benz, so that's why it was Mercedes-Benz, and it was the first vehicle was a Mercedes-Benz, and it had like wagon wheels on it, but it had a fucking one-cylinder fucking engine in it, steam engine in the 1880s, which this kind of like brought me into a crazy thing. So I want to say this to you because when we talked about, this is something that came up yesterday too, is in the cross of planning. It was what, 16?
9, 37, 40.
Like the year?
Oh, the year. 17.
No, it was 1670 or something like that.
Something.
Because the transit of Venus, that's what it's literally called, of the Venus eclipses that, passed through us, 2004, 2012.
16, 15.
Okay. Guess what was happening in the last fucking transit of Venus? So 1880s, right? It's a 120-year cycle. You go back, then again, another 120 years. You get to like 1680, I think it is. No, 120 from 18. It's 1760, and then you go back another 120, and you get to like 1640s, I think it is, somewhere in there, 1630s. But it was like, I was like, holy shit, the transit of Venus in this new weird moment where there's 2 Venus eclipses, and they actually were talking about it back then. Like, what? They finally recognized during the cross of planning the transit of Venus. And then they go back into the ancient texts, how they knew, but it wasn't until that moment of the cross of planning that they actually understood it. And then we've been recording it ever since. And in 2012, when they recorded the last one, they literally went, well, now we can understand where we can find exoplanets. And we won't see it again until the 2100s, 2120 and stuff, before the 2150 technical age of Aquarius, like if you see the full shift. But it was interesting to me of thinking like, oh no, I'm like, there's something about this cross of planning that, is very connected to the Sun-Venus obsession. Right?
Right. And like, that's where all of this, in the Masonic culture that we're actually in right now, this, limelight and fanfare and this glamour of Hollywood and the veil and the celebrity and the stars, it's all actually veiled goddess worship culture from ancient Babylon that ties into like the portal goddess, which is Venus, in her circle and cross.
Right.
And how that's basically the false goddess, basically. Like that's the inverted dark mother energy, is this false, Venus cult stuff. And so, yeah, that's just interesting because it's the cross of planning has been more dominated by that kind of culture than I would say any other time that we've been aware of, at least, because it's been so palpable and just everywhere, global.
But comes from America mainly.
The hub.
And that has an undefined sacral, which I laughed with you when we said that, because we were like, how weirdly hypersexualized is America? Like, it's crazy.
Totally not self.
Like, it doesn't, like, right? Like, I have a divine sacral, you have a divine sacral. Like, I'm not fucking like, hey, you want to see my fucking titty right now? Like, you know what I mean? But like, undefined sacral energy can sometimes not know how to deal with the energy, or there's like so much weird shit about the fucking kids and children and all this weird shit going on, right? It's like, it's fucking crazy because it is kind of this weird obsession. And then when you prop up these celebrity figures that, little kids look up to, which are super hypersexualized and in a dark way, as you say, like a dark goddess energy. So like girls look up to, when they see fucking like Rihanna and all them, and they're doing these fucking cult fucking rituals.
Right in front of your eyes.
Right in front of your eyes. And it's like, hello. Or even at the Olympics in 2012. Like, that was the fucking Sleeping Phoenix coming out and all this crazy fucking shit, right? That happened in China.
Cross planning.
Oh, no, that was in London. Sorry. That was the London one. It was London in 2012, right? Yeah. And that was like the galactic shift point. That was like, this shit is changing and you all better get ready. That was the first like subtle moment. And people that weren't aware during 2012 or didn't believe it, like, I think they have a harder time through these times, where all of us that were awake during 2012, like, yeah, okay, I'm prepared. I'm listening. The Mayans were right, and they always have been right. I'm going to listen to that. But I think it's going to be one of those things, might take 1,000 years down the road or something like that for people to be like, damn, those Mayans were right. Like, I still think it'll all come down to that 2012 where it feels like we went to a whole new system. And then those systems are fucking been slow. Like you said, solar plexus stuff takes some time. And as we're
Before
coming
you
in,
really know, yeah.
as we're coming into that sleeping Phoenix cross, the activation of it is kind of like a hyper awareness of that. And then there's going to even be more of that but more, I think, intense gradually, but it's happening now and it's pulling on people's heartstrings emotionally. Oh yeah. Even like Madonna, when she comes out and she fucking comes out as Isis, you know, and flaps her fucking insect wings of the fucking, it's like
hive queen. Yeah.
She's a hive queen and it's a fucking praying mantis. It's not a fucking, I'm sorry to say, the data now shows everywhere that it was not birds. It was insects. Even them putting them up in mummies and mummification them was to look like larvae. I haven't shown you all that shit yet.
That's another rabbit hole.
That's a huge rabbit hole. But think of the hive, like think of the queen bee or the queen, or especially, let's go to the queen ant.
Put it all together.
The ants kill, right? And then they steal all the goods from the other and bring it to the queen to serve the queen.
Larva
and then they larva it. And the way that the Egyptians did everything, if you see the wings, they're not birds with the colors. If you spread the wings of a fucking crazy insect, they are all those weird colors. Mm-hmm. And the way that the fucking two fucking, you know, top part of Isis are straight up like a praying mantis. There's no bird that has that.
Yeah.
But a praying mantis does when you look at it and you look at the wings of one. And so, you know, when you start looking into all the insect shit and how insects work, that they're most common to this dark kind of like injected hive. It's like, especially when we talk, like they're trying to serve now insects to people, but like the good insects, the crickets, it's like, you know, I feel like there's good insects too. Not a lot of them, but there's like some good ones. I always tell people when it's like, if you have to step on the spider, step on the fucking spider. Like, it's no big deal. There is a weird fucking thing about people are like, oh no, let me help the motherfucker. I'm like, that thing fucking has been watching you, has been a little fucking with all the eyes and with all the way that we as humans try to look like them, our suits, our armor. If you look at a fucking airplane jet, looks like a fucking insect. When you look at our fucking body armor over the time, it looks like a beetle. Or like, we have been copying the insects and how we live and how they will go to war and how they thrive and how they always serve a central fucking thing the whole time. And that's the fucking creepy shit. Or like, I just put on my story today, the Russian fucking cosmonauts went up in space and they showed a picture from Earth and there's a fly that fucking is outside the window.
I saw that. And I was like,
how is there a fly in the middle of space? Or even in the spaceship? Impossible. Or maybe not.
Middle world or circle world. Or what was it?
Well, I think, yeah, but you know what? I got to say this, and this might trigger people. I think when it comes to this whole, women are obsessed with the ISIS thing, right? Okay. Men, we are not praising a godly, like I'm not praising Ares, the god of war, right? Like I don't have like spiritual like things of that, right?
It's like the whole moon worship thing. Like the moon is not your mother.
Right. It's not your mom.
It
only looks at you from one side. It doesn't show the other side.
That's a trauma implant that is literally morphing your fascia to hold you in a specific frequency of disillusionment, of confusion, and of mistaking the very forces that try and rob you of your essence as like your core. That's what ISIS is. Sorry to break it to everybody, but that whole pantheon was implemented in order to harvest consciousness and to give this like golden veneer to the priestly caste, who were robbing everyone blind in Egypt.
And enslaving them to build the fucking whole entire fucking way.
And just party, basically.
Yeah.
And the priests...
And wrap each other like larvae, yeah.
Right, and they were serving some like twisted, orgy-tastic, creepy mother thing, which has not left. The thing about parasites is... But right before they get really obvious, they go dormant again so that you can regenerate just enough so they can come back to harvest you.
Right.
So this is not new. None of these common enemies are just now arriving. They've been here manipulating the cycles, the global cycles, the cross of planning for They're way better at it than we are, obviously. But that's the crazy thing to think about, you know, you, I, anybody that's kind of having this dialogue in this time, is we may be one of the only and first and last little human beings to wrap our heads around this whole picture. Not to, like, it's not from an egotistical place. I'm not saying, oh yeah, we're the freaking baddest. I'm just saying, like, that's just a cool thing to think about. Like, we
to
are
bring into that new cross, because after that, as you say, truth. And Ra even says truth will never, like, there will not be an access to
a dark age.
Right, there will not be access to truth.
Illumination will cease to be accessible, and that's another thing. Like, all of these networks, all of this mass tech buildup, and then, you know, it's
why do you think I've been buying 400-year-old books? Because I know they're not.
Because that's the only thing that's going to be around.
It's the only thing that's going to be around. Like everything that's, even like all the movies I want and stuff. Like, I'm like, shit. Do I need to just buy the VHS and have a VHS? Like, because I have VHS, and then I'm like, okay, I have all the records of music I want, records that I'll be able to play. Like, people aren't thinking about that kind of stuff. They're like, oh no, I got my fucking iTunes and I got my I got my Spotify, I got my It's like, all that music you love, have you downloaded it yet to a place to where you could physically listen to it as a DJ? Fuck, man. You know, like I'm somebody who's going to want to play on records still and have something to play.
You got to have a soundtrack to Killing the Zombies.
Yeah.
And
literally.
It's like, wasn't in Mars Attacks they had the record player?
Yeah.
Like, it was the only thing that like survived at the end.
It was her. It was the grandma who listened to that old fucking, I forgot the country singer's fucking.
Yeah, like the bellowy.
Yeah, but you know, and she used to, remember she just sit there and they're all exploding in the heads.
Yeah.
And then and then they put it on the car and they just have the record player. Then they say, put this record player on every fucking military thing and just blast it. It's
always the sound.
It's always the frequency. Yeah, and even in
A Quiet Place.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It was all about how lights and sound to talk to the aliens. It wasn't what they thought.
Language, yeah. Mm-hmm. In The Quiet Place, they killed the aliens with sound.
With sound.
They used like her hearing aid and put it on a megaphone, and it like blew.
But that also means that it affects us, and that's what the military used in Iraq. They rolled tanks in, and this is when I was in. And it was crazy when they started using sound fucking displacement weapons to where it just fucking boggles this nervous system of people. And they don't even know how to be compliant or not compliant. Yeah. They just turn them into, and then just go in there and, right?
Wow.
Like, because especially the WMDs that were happening, it was like, okay, let our fucking guys go through and find where the WMDs are and find where any of the fucking mines are, right? And fucking just blast the town, the kids, everybody, because the kids were fucking rolling around and throwing fucking grenades. But they were defending themselves because it was kind of fucked up. We were just going in for some little small group of terrorists, but then going in and creating a whole fucking, police state. And so, but it's pretty fucked up. They have that weaponry, you know what I mean? Like, even what Elon Musk is doing. And even with the way that they're doing the electric cars and they're trying to make fake sounds of the car.
Right.
Are you sure you're not being programmed? Or when Apple puts white noise, I don't think white noise is good. That's a television. That's what in every horror movie, exorcism movie, the TVs all go to.
What are they putting white noise on?
On every iPhone. Like right now on my iPhone, you could just go. And if I want to like listen to a sound, right, you could like literally listen to fucking background sounds, and they have bright noise, fucking dark noise.
Yes, become more reliant on your device for homeostasis than you already are. Just let it run all
balanced
your circadian
noise.
rhythms.
Oh, balanced of dark and bright noise.
I don't like it.
Ocean? A fake? Is that even an ocean?
Go to a real ocean.
Rain? That's not real rain. Stream? It's not a real stream. So, like that's where people are not paying attention right now. And like they rely on this. I did a whole section on this before we were doing this show about how You listening to white noise at night in your sleep is literally putting you into the white noise, literally, of, I'm sorry to say, even in, what was it? I think it was in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory when fucking that one kid gets lost in the fucking TV, right?
Mike TV.
Yeah,
like something.
Mike TV, yeah. Like, people are not paying attention. Not paying attention at all. And it's just embedded in your iPhone now. And I know so many people in this community, that's all they listen to. Oh yeah, I can only go to bed with white noise. I'm like, exorcism movies. Go watch all the Exorcists. Not just the first one. Go watch any exorcism movie. And guess what happens when the TVs, when the fucking demonic fucking beings take over and they take over our soul. The TVs go to fucking white noise. Or The Ring.
Right.
Oh yeah. You ready for her to come through? You ready for an entity to walk through the television screen? Wonderful.
Because that interference between the white, the black, and the gray is just enough empty space for something like that has no physicality to
It's
hang
just
out.
like CERN blasting the particles of one side to another side and smashing them together into a fucking noise that I don't know how you can fall asleep to white noise. When I remember as a kid, whenever the fucking cable box, the little red numbers fucking went off the, it go, you know, I'd be like, okay, go as fast as I can to that channel that we've got. Mom, do we have that one? Okay, we have this one. But I would do it as fast as I could because the last thing I wanted to listen to was a screen with white noise. I'm like,
Right.
God damn, it's bad.
Because you leave it on long enough.
Or the second that the antenna ears fucking, you know, are out of sync, what happens? White noise.
That's Uranus retrograde. It's where all the entities.
And that's what's
swarm
happening in a week and a half. So the fact that this full moon is happening in Aquarius, the fact that it is squaring Uranus, the fact that the North Node's with Uranus, the fact that Uranus is stationing, this is where the craziest shit starts to fucking go down.
Get your tin foil helmets, everybody.
So, but the craziest leap out of the white noise in your life, which that's the best description I think of where people are at, is like when you're just sitting in the white noise and going, I don't know, should I do this? Should I change this? Oh boy. Tune to a station that you know inside of your G-spot. G-spot. I mean that's a good spot to go to too.
For some people. Yeah.
But yeah, go to that G center and self-projected projector. Oh God, don't be self-projecting white noise.
That ain't gonna be pretty.
No. But we'll go down some of these other rabbit holes on our next show. Fucking.
Oh man. We've got tunnels.
I know, there's
tunnel
tunnels.
complexes to go through.
Really? This first, I don't know, this is like our 5th episode,
That's
I
our
think.
first 5, yeah.
Now it changes after the 5th one to.
I feel like we've done a lot of like current stuff.
Yeah.
Now we can kind of go back into the windy caverns and pull
and
some
bring
stuff
it
out.
to know
now.
why. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Well, awesome show, man. And yeah, after this full moon, don't fuck it up no more. And that full moon's happening in the next 4 hours. So once you watch this, if you watch this recording, it already happened. So
Welcome to the new world.
yes.
Warning. Incoming game.
And the box is coming down, the cube, which is not a positive thing either. And when you see that in Mecca, the cube, they go around.
What?
In Islam, they go to the
that
Mecca
one.
and the cube.
The
Yeah.
Kaaba thing, yeah.
Uh-huh.
All that black cube. I mean, we have one in
And
Santa Ana at
I
the
know.
Science Center.
I know.
Lucky us.
Yeah, and it's all tilted, fucking all weird in the glass off the freeway. Like,
Right. Tilted to show us that we're on a tilted axis on this earth. Like the whole, pivot on our Earth's axis is not natural. Moving planets, frequency fences, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah. The Discovery Science Museum. I can't believe, how is that place still a business? You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah,
like,
who goes there?
I guess it's just the field trips from school. Because remember we all went there. Like,
Those high ticket field trips.
Oh my God. I remember being so bored there. Like, well, that's not working today. I'm like, well, I'm interested in this. No. And I remember like us sitting around there going, we're not allowed to fuck around. Nothing's working. And they're just like,
Guess I'll pet some sea
I remember being
anemones
like,
and
this
go
is
home.
not a field trip. We're just sitting around here.
This was just some like contract.
I know, literally, you could see even the people's face like, oh God, another group of kids. Fucking every day. So sick of this, America, my undefined fucking sacral. I'm going to just stay here though. I'm just gonna stay here. I like it. I don't have to do anything, but I have to complain. Let's watch these kids and teach them fake science. Shit.
Moon's making a channel with Saturn. We're emotional until the moon goes full.
I know. Once it's full, though, it's kind of like white noise. Well, thanks so much for being a part of the show, everyone. Make sure that you join highvibe.tv. You can find Dylan at humandesignmaven on his Instagram. And what's your website? It's humandesignmaven, right?
hdmaven.com.
Or hdmaven.com.
It's a very simple website.
Link is down below. And of course, all the links down below for that awesome, it was just 2 weeks ago that I just did with Coyote Star Astrology. You can watch that. It's $14.95, 3 hours of just pure astrology and all these transits coming up.
Super relevant.
Super relevant to all this. And then, of course, I'll be in Texas with Robert Phoenix on October 14th through 16th. Link down below. Meals included, so forth. Awesome retreat I'm doing. A lot of stuff going on. And please share this video. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next Before Dawn.